Out of the gates and ready to go with the Tuesday edition of Hot Mike. Glad you're with us across the OutKick Network. Hutton and Withrow here with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine at 6th and Peabody in downtown Nashville. It's our hub. You can join us here anytime that you visit Music City. Visiting with us in about 20 minutes, Raymond Felton, longtime NBA veteran. Now he's got a podcast going, and we'll talk NBA playoffs. Of course, Raymond also known for his time and winning the title with North Carolina and the Tar Heels. That's coming up in 20 minutes. John McClain of GallerySports.com. A lot to discuss with the longtime reporter for the NFL. We'll dive into all things NFL draft and NFL topics among quarterbacks and big contract extensions and the extensions on the horizon. Dane Brugler from The Athletic, author of The Beast, the best draft analysis, headed your way in a couple of hours, hour number 3, plus Kurt Schilling on the show today. We'll talk all things Major League Baseball and preview the Kurt Schilling Baseball Show, which is available at OutKick.com. Chad, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. If you ever wanted to know, Hutton, how long the delay is on YouTube, it's about 17 seconds because we just heard the start of your open.
Nice.
Because I did not have my computer muted. Way to roll right through that.
No problem.
That is my bad to open, but I got to it quickly, hit mute, and now we're ready for a big show. What a guest list today. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, it's going to be great. A lot of topics with each of them to hit. And the topic being discussed with the NFL draft right now is what's going to happen with the Houston Texans. And so the NFL frowns upon the idea of the fans and the media and everyone knowing what's going to take place with the first overall pick. Well, news is out, Chad. News is out. Bryce Young, according to reports and the fact that, the reports are he's not taking any more visits, although he has visited the Texans. He's not visiting with anyone else for the opportunity that he falls very far. In fact, the reports are the Panthers have made up their mind they're going to draft Bryce Young. Cool. NFL doesn't like that. When Goodell goes to the podium at 8:15 Eastern next Thursday, he wants some drama behind what name he's going to read. And they want that with the second pick, and then the third pick, and so on. Because after about the top 5, then there is some uncertainty with some trades, right? Well, now there is a growing buzz that the Texans may not even draft a quarterback. That we may get to a point where this quarterback crop falls further than what we thought, maybe not like last year. But for all of the discussion about the QBs going 1, 2, and 3, which will be only the 4th time in the history of the draft we've seen that. Yesterday, Adam Schefter's on NFL Live with our friend Dan Orlovsky saying, hey, I'll bet $10, 10-1 odds, that we're not going to see the second quarterback off the board until the Indianapolis Colts. If even then, we may see a different level of a grade once the draft gets going. This, after all the discussion about quarterback-needy teams having an opportunity to really bolster their roster and take a chance on a guy that they can develop. I'm here to say there will be busts in this draft at that position, at other positions. There will be a handful that will be in this first round. But if you think Nick Caserio or Chris Ballard are looking at this and thinking, you know what, there's going to be busts at this quarterback spot, so this isn't the year. This just isn't the year to get the quarterback. It may not be your year a year from now because of that decision. You can't rely on the fact that you think a guy is going to be a complete bust as a reason why you shouldn't draft the position. We're not talking one guy. There's 3 options here. And one of them, C.J. Stroud, who was not a bust at the collegiate level, who did live up to expectations on the field with great players around him. And I can't for the life of me figure out why, if you're Houston, you would pass on that option, given the fact that you've won 11 games over the last 3 seasons combined. And one of those seasons was with Deshaun Watson. And you're passing on the quarterback with a brand new head coach, brand new offensive coordinator in Bobby Slowick coming over as well from the Shanahan tree, from that offense, knowing that they haven't always had the top talent at the position, but they've been able to develop the quarterback into the guy that they want. I don't hesitate and feel like I can't go quarterback at the top if I'm DeMeco Ryans or Bobby Slowick, based on the fact that, well, I guess Bryce Young's already off the board, so we'll just wait. On what? On the fact that Davis Mills is somehow going to become the 15th best quarterback in the league? Or maybe you have to put Case Keenum in and go back full circle where he started, and now he's back in Houston to just fill a void and for another losing season? There's no way I sign up for that, because the top defensive lineman in the draft in no way gives you the bump that this team needs. And if you want to stay where you are, I'd pass on the quarterback, because you're not climbing the ladder without one. And the assumption that, oh, now there's hesitation. There's hesitation because I believe networks are trying to create a little drama to get you to tune in, because this is one of the least talked about draft classes as a whole. It's really been a discussion of 4 quarterbacks, and that's about it.
And I think what you're saying is right, and they have to take a quarterback, and they will. We've got someone in the YouTube chat also bringing up a good point, saying the fans in Houston will revolt if a quarterback is not picked in that spot. I do also think that there are times when general managers will take a quarterback they don't love simply because of out of fear. They fear that if they don't have their franchise guy and they don't take the quarterback, and that quarterback goes on to do something great, they're going to be out of a job quickly because they didn't take the quarterback. I prefer GMs just to do what they feel is right and what is best for their team. Now, what's best for the Texans right now is to take C.J. Stroud. I'm totally with Hutton on that. That's what they should do. But I'm all for if a team says, and this is the message if you don't draft quarterback, if you are the Texans, if you are every team that doesn't trade up with Arizona for number 3, or if you are the Colts and you do not take one of these quarterbacks, what you're saying is not that we don't just love the quarterbacks here. You're saying you hate them. Because if you like them at all, you take one of them. I mean, at all. The statement is, we really don't like these quarterbacks. None of them are NFL players. That is what you're saying if you pass up on one of these guys. And they're not going to do that, because I think these guys are NFL players, and they are going to take one of them. But I do also think there is a subsection at times of general managers who will automatically take the quarterback out of fear simply because if they don't, they know what that's going to look like with their fan base. They know they're dead meat, even if they don't completely believe in that quarterback. Mutual friend of ours, Jacob, who's a huge sports guy, Hutton, said something to me over a text over the weekend. He said, we should also get away from the notion of simply taking a bad football player because of the position they play. And he's talking about quarterback. That if you don't take a bad quarterback, take a different position. Even if you need a quarterback, instead of just taking the quarterback that's available in that spot. I don't think these guys are bad. I wouldn't take Will Levis, but I don't think these are bad quarterbacks, so they need to take one of them. But I can also see that side of it with, if you are a GM who says, not only am I not in love with one of these quarterback options, I think they suck, then you go draft Jalen Carter, or you draft someone else, and you live with it. That's courage. To just do the exact opposite of what every one of your fans wants in drafting a quarterback and seeing if they can get the job done, and you go against the grain and do that because you don't believe in any of the quarterbacks, I will applaud that courage. Now, I'll also be applauding them when they're probably out of a job if one of those quarterbacks goes on to have a good rookie year somewhere else. So that's the flip side of it, and that's the risk you take.
The courage to say, wave the white flag, because both of these guys that I'm using as an example need a quarterback because they don't have one currently. And they've passed up on the free agent and trade options. They didn't get involved with Aaron Rodgers. Indy's not getting involved with Lamar Jackson, at least not as we know it today. So Ballard needs a quarterback. They've got Gardner Minshew there currently. And on the flip side, Nick Caserio is having to answer questions about if he's out after this draft anyway, which is something that John McClain, who is on with us, will be on with us later today, said that he heard at the Combine. And that stirred up some discussion in Houston that he had heard that Caserio after the draft was going back to New England. And he said, he clarified he didn't believe it, but it did lead to a great throwback, a recent throwback. But, Chad, I think you'll like the reference that Caserio makes here when he's answering questions at a pre-draft press conference.
And then, before we take any questions, quite frankly, I'm almost embarrassed that I have to say anything. Honestly, I feel like Leonardo DiCaprio in The Wolf of Wall Street, but I'm not leaving. There's never really been any substantive discussions of the sort. Grateful and appreciative of the opportunity that my family and I have here in Houston. We understood when we arrived, when we got here, that there was a lot of work to be done. And I think when you look across the NFL landscape, there's work to be done in every organization. And I think we've made some progress where we still have a lot of work in front of us. Certainly, it's been a joy to work with D'Amico in concert as we build the team and continue to build the staff. Unfortunately, I think this time of year, there's a lot of information and a lot of topics that are discussed. Some are more accurate than others, and I think it transcends multiple landscapes. But I can't. I'm honestly, I'm almost embarrassed that I have to say anything, but I feel like I have an obligation to to make that statement. Really try to stay ahead of it. I don't think there's anything else to talk about or to say or any question about it.
There's Nick Caserio, and I love the reference to DiCaprio and Wolf of Wall Street with Jordan Belfort. But, yeah, he's not leaving. And keep in mind the Texans also have 2 first-round picks this year because their quarterback opted to leave in Deshaun Watson. He tapped out after signing the contract extension, and then came the full long season sit-down when they tried to get rid of him, and then everything happened off the field. Point being, they can use another pick if they pass on the quarterback early, trade back up ahead of someone if they want another player. But you don't pass up on the quarterback. You can trade back up and get a defensive player that could fall. And I think they'll end up doing the right thing here with the new coaching staff. And by the way, the new OC in Slowick, he was the passing game coordinator when McDaniel was the run game coordinator. So
I can't wait to talk to John McClain
they
about
need
this
quarterbacks.
Story with the Texans. And Caserio, terrific reference, big Jordan Belfort guy.
Yeah.
Big Martin Scorsese guy, big Leo guy. So I'm a big Nick Caserio guy now for having referenced that. Now, the complexion of this draft will look a lot different if they draft Jalen Carter, number 2 overall, and then get Hendon Hooker later in the first round if they come out and say, we thought Hendon Hooker was better than C.J. Stroud all along. So we got exactly what we wanted out of this draft. Now, most people would call BS on that if they did that, but we would have a different opinion of that if they got quarterback somewhere in the first round. But I think you're right, Hutton. They're not doing that. They're drafting.
And the assumption would also be that
a quarterback at number 2.
Arizona's not going to trade out because the team's not going to be willing to trade ahead of Indy.
They're drafting Stroud or Richardson too. That's my guess.
Throwback there, and a throwback that Governor DeSantis referenced through his team. Real men of women's sports. I had a laugh at this. Listen.
Team DeSantis presents
Real Men of Women's Sports.
Today we recognize the men who've hacked the system.
Hack the system.
Once mediocre in the men's division, now cream of the crop in the women's.
From mediocre to champion.
You couldn't cut it with the boys, so you pushed women off the podium.
Real men still first place.
Because without you, sports would be fair. Without you, women's sports would be for, well, women.
So what they're saying in the parody there is true, and something that you and I, Chad, have said any time that we see this topic on the rundown, right? Women's sports are for biological women. But
we're very consistent with that.
Here is the tie-in with Bud Light, given everything that's happened with Dylan Mulvaney.
So here's a few things that I have on this. One is I don't see the tie-in because, to my knowledge, Dylan Mulvaney is not stumping for Leah Thomas to be able to dominate Riley Gaines and other swimmers in the pool. I haven't seen that as part of this Bud Light terrible marketing campaign. And let's start there. This was a terrible, terrible marketing decision.
Yes.
And for the VP of marketing of Bud Light to come out and say, we're trying to get away from the frat boy culture. Honey, do you understand your demo? Do you understand your audience? You don't have a mega billion-dollar selling beer without fraternities across America, without college kids across America, because the beer is not that good. I don't drink Bud Light because I don't like Bud Light. Let me also give this message out to everyone. If you are going to stand on the pedestal of being anti-cancel culture, be consistent with it. I'm anti-cancel culture at all times. I'm also anti-canceling Bud Light because they made a ridiculously dumb marketing decision. You cannot have it both ways. I get sick and tired of answering stupidity with more stupidity. The side that's on the side of anti-cancel culture is now telling everyone to not buy Bud Light and to cancel Bud Light. Don't buy Bud Light if you don't like Bud Light. If you love it, drink the hell out of it. I'm here to tell you that right now, because who cares at the end of the day? Do I believe that if you make a bad marketing decision, that sometimes it should cost you financially? Sure, and that's what's happening with Bud Light, and they get what they deserve. But don't talk to me about being anti-cancel culture and then go on and tell me how you need to go cancel Bud Light. It doesn't work that way. This is what people have been railing against forever. If you're on a side that's seen as conservative politically, people have been canceled over and over and over again. Companies, there's been boycotts attempted of companies that have endorsed a presidential candidate or talked to a presidential candidate or shook hands with a presidential candidate or done anything that's seen as right-leaning for years. The response to that is not to get in the muck and be dumb with them and say, well, no, we're going to cancel you too because no, just don't do it. Be smart. Be anti-cancel culture. We are anti-cancel culture on this show. That works all ways. So if you like Bud Light, drink the hell out of it. And if you hate it like me, don't. It's that simple. And we can all acknowledge, hell, Bud Light has acknowledged this was a terrible decision.
Right.
There is not a planet that exists or a marketing world or an office on Madison Avenue that would tell you, hey, you know what we need to do with Bud Light? We need to get more of the trans community involved on this and go against selling to fraternities. That's bad business. And it's bit them because it's bad business. But let's stop with the cancel stuff. If you're anti-cancel culture like I am, then don't be cancel culture about this too. Mock the stupidity of people that want to cancel everybody and everything because they don't agree with it, and then move on. Don't respond to stupidity with more stupidity.
Well said. And I'm right there with you. The anti-cancel culture and speaking out against hypocrisy.
Yes, that's what this show will do. Look, we have been hired to voice our opinions. And this is what Clay talked about on his podcast with Stephen A. Smith. We talked about the ability to say whatever you want and have no fear of cancellation. I'd be very uncomfortable if having trumpeted these values, these American First Amendment values, like we do here at OutKick and like Clay has as the founder of OutKick forever, if I then came on here and say, but let me tell you this, stand with us and don't buy Bud Light. Cancel it. Because they made a bad marketing decision. And the DeSantis video is funny. I did laugh at it.
Yeah, me too.
But also, he's making a false connection here. Dylan Mulvaney was not talking about trans being able to compete against women in female athletics. You made that connection on your own somehow with it. So I don't really see the connection to it in this instance. But again, if you're anti-cancel culture, consistency. Consistency, lack of hypocrisy, that is what we do here on Hot Mic. Thank you.
And coming up, we want to find the consistency in whatever the Mavs were trying to do at the end of the season. But first, are the Warriors in trouble? They're down 0-2, and Draymond Green was Draymond Green last night with Sabonis. We'll discuss all of the big topics as the playoffs are off to what has been a fantastic start with game atmospheres, results, young stars in the making, at least potentially. Raymond Felton joins us next to break it down on Hot Mic.
What is your most controversial opinion? I think girls with hairy armpits should be eradicated from the face of this earth.
I agree.
Thank you so much.
Hottest take is that In-N-Out is overrated.
Yep. Absolutely. Because their French fries taste like cardboard, and they get soggy too quick if you get them animal style, and their burgers are just like always dry. So it's gross.
Hot dog is not a sandwich
Why not?
because it's not two separate pieces of bread.
What's your hottest take?
Normalize blacking out. ChatGPT is going to take over the world.
Hate Duke University. I hope they never win a game in the history of life. I hate everything about them. That's my take.
Why is that your hot take? Why do you feel so strongly about that?
Air of arrogance amongst people I'm friends with, and I want to punch them in the face often.
I believe there shouldn't be any weight classes in fighting, UFC, boxing, just to let the best fighter fight.
I'm a Packers fan. I think it'd be great if Aaron Rodgers leaves. It'd be really funny if he demanded all this stuff from the Jets and then stayed.
LeBron James is not the go to basketball.
My hot take is that the University of Tennessee is hot trash, and so is the SEC. Go Big Ten.
I hate when people slow down when it's a green light and they think it's going to turn yellow, so they slow down anticipating that it's going to turn like red.
People do that?
Yeah, at least in Canada.
He's from Canada. I asked people from Canada for their hot takes. They don't have any. They don't have any.
I'm not a controversial person. To each their own, I guess.
Hot takes from Canada.
Snapchat is cringy. Do not ask for my Snapchat if you are over 18 years old.
I think a celebrity that got canceled and shouldn't have is Hayley Williams from Paramore, simply because she said a derogatory term in her song Misery Business from like 15 years ago. 15 years later, they decide she's a criminal? I don't know about that.
I think the Beatles are overrated.
I'm here in Nashville. My hot take is that country music sucks.
Taylor Swift is overrated.
Swift was better country, for sure.
Cowboy boots aren't cool.
We are far from the most racist country in the world.
I'm so ready for the new president.
Here we go. Joe Biden is a terrible president. Trump 2024.
Chad, I was thinking last night as I'm watching the Kings and Warriors game, this series has a feeling to me like that first series when the Warriors were just starting to get going as a young team with the atmosphere and all the talk about the arena. And we'll see where it leads to. But it's been a blast through 2 games. And a big part of it is how the Kings are pulling off these games late.
It also reminds me of something from our teenage years and from something from our next guest's childhood, the first great iteration of the Sacramento Kings.
Yeah.
I mean, it reminds me of late 90s, early 2000s when they finally got it going, got into the playoffs, and that was a fun team to watch. And Arco Arena back in the day, or whatever it was called, was hopping.
And then they ran into Shaq and Kobe on their attempted path to the NBA Finals. Raymond Felton joins us, NCAA champion, UNC Tar Heel, 15-year career in the league, and host of the Believe in Mavs podcast. Raymond, great to have you on the show, man. Hope things are well.
Oh, I'm doing well, guys. Thanks for having me on.
So are we overvaluing the Kings and what we're seeing right now? Because they are matched up, and technically they're the 3 seed. They're playing a 6 seed, but this is not your average 6 seed that they're facing and beating and up 2-0.
They definitely deserve it. You know, you're talking about a team that's been playing at a high level all year. They've proven that they deserve to be in the playoffs, and they're proving that right now in the playoffs. That's a very talented young team. They're well coached, and I think Darren Fox is showing that he's the star that he really is in his league. And not to mention having Sabonis, having Malik Monk and those guys coming off the bench doing the things that they're doing. This is a very dangerous team.
Do you get the sense that the Warriors are feeling like they're in trouble? Or is this, hey, we're playing our game, we turned it over 30 times. If we just rein it in, we're fine?
I don't think they're a team that panics. But at the same time, you are down 2-0, something that you never experienced in your playoff history. So I ain't gonna say they panicking, but they got to be worried a little bit. They got to be worried because anything can happen down in San Francisco. You know, those guys can go down there and steal a game, and now you're looking at being down 3-0 or 3-1, and you know it's gonna be hard to beat them down in Sacramento. It's gonna be hard to beat those young boys. And the boys playing at a very high level when they seem to be hungry.
Is Draymond Green a dirty player, or does he just consistently make dirty plays over the course of games?
I don't think he's a dirty player at all. I think Draymond plays with a lot of energy. Does things happen within the mix of the game, and you know you get out of control, and sometimes you lose your head in a situation. Then yes, I can say that. You know, I've done that before. You know, but at the same time, just to call him an all-out dirty player, I don't think he's a dirty player.
Do you ever recall, and I ask this, I'm being sincere when I say this, because I watch some of the things with Draymond Green, and I think if he's not dirty, and I'm not saying, you know, definitively that he is, I don't know that I know a dirty player in the last 20, 25 years in the NBA. So have you ever played against someone or seen a player where you said, okay, that was dirty, but this isn't a dirty player, or maybe you have an example of, no, this guy was a pretty dirty player when we went up against him?
In the time I was in the league, no, I could never really call nobody dirty. You know, you had your guys that was just really physical, you know, and sometimes those guys could be physical to the point where people get hurt. I can say that, but as far as just calling somebody blatantly, they just a dirty person who's going out there trying to hurt somebody, I can't honestly know. I can say one person. I don't think so.
So last night, Sabonis grabs his leg. That definitely does happen. And then Draymond Green steps on his chest and runs away. It's a technical on Sabonis. It's a flagrant 2 and an ejection for Draymond Green. Do you think that was the right outcome, officiating-wise, at the end of that play?
I got mixed feelings when it comes to that. You know, Sabonis did grab his foot as he's trying to get up. Trying to get your leg out of there with a kick would have been a situation where both of them got flagrant fouls, and I think that would have been cool. I think it was just a little bit extra when Draymond kind of stomps on his chest and then lifts off his chest to get off of him. I think that's where it became extra. So, you know, they was forced, you know, to have to throw him out the game and give him a flagrant 2 in that situation. But when somebody grabs your foot and you're trying to run and take off, quite naturally you're trying to kick away. But, we all know, we've seen the play last night, that it was a little bit more than just a kick. So I think that's what caused him to get ejected from the game.
Raymond Felton with us on Hot Mic. Where are the Lakers different right now versus what we saw in the regular season?
I think just guys are healthy. Guys are healthy. They got a better, continuity with each other with these guys. I don't think it had to do anything with one person. I don't think it had to do anything with Russ. I just don't think it just didn't fit. It didn't work. It didn't work for him. It didn't work for them. So, and he's looking great over there with the Clippers, and the Lakers is looking good. So, I think it worked out for everybody for them to part ways.
Where did it go wrong with Kyrie Irving and the Mavericks after the trade? And what do you think is next for both sides?
I think you got to lock in a guy like Kyrie if you can. You must lock him in for sure. If that's a possibility. But then at the same time, I feel like you gotta with this Dallas team, they gotta get some defenders in there. They gotta get a shot blocker in there, and then they also just gotta find guys that can play with Luka, who dominates the ball a lot. When you got a guy that dominates the ball, dominates the offense at such a high level, you gotta find guys that's capable of playing with a guy like that. And I think Jalen Brunson was the perfect person. So losing him was a big blow, and they can see that now. But at the same time, you have to find guys that know how to play the game of basketball that can play with Luka.
What happened with Brunson? Why did it get to the point where they parted ways?
They didn't get the deal done. For what I heard, I feel like they could have got the deal done early on. They could have got the deal done early within the year before. That didn't happen. So now you put him in a situation where he can go into free agency, and we all know things can happen during that time. We can talk about recruitment. We can talk about, as a player, we recruit guys to try to come to your team all the time. So, who knows what happened. So when stuff like that happens, you taking a gamble of losing a player, and that's just what happens. He got offered more money than I think Dallas would have offered him or would have been able to pay him. And then on top of that, he still went to a team that was good. So now look at them. You add him to that team, they go from a team that's possibly can make the playoffs and or doesn't, to a team that's can be, pretty scary in the playoffs, can be a contender, can cause a lot of problems. I think this is a team that can beat Cleveland. I really do.
Raymond,
so, and then that's a big reason that because of Jalen Brunson is there.
Raymond Felton with us. We're talking NBA playoffs. He's the host of the Believe in Mavs pod. So we've been discussing the Mavs over the last couple of weeks, just based on the situation that really started, at least for me, in that third quarter where the Warriors got a free 2 points off of what Mark Cuban said was miscommunication. And two teams at opposite ends of the floor, for whatever reason, they allow Golden State to inbounds the ball, free layup, 2 points. The game's decided by 2 points. Towards the end of the year, I know that the day before they announced that they're not going to play certain players, the NBA came back and ruled that they weren't going to do anything about that result. And I said, well, it's not a coincidence, at least to me, that the following game is whenever we saw the starters announced that they weren't going to play. I realized their record wasn't that great with everybody playing anyway. And then it's a 3-point game. And then so everyone's like the tanking, all these different things. And it's a 3-point game at the end of it, which I think complicated some of the arguments for people saying that the loss was coming on purpose, despite the players being announced they were sitting. It was a very bizarre 24, 48 hours.
Hey, when I was in the league, we played it out no matter what.
Yep.
It's a lot of things that go on differently now in this league. You have guys sitting out, guys getting rest games, and I understand injuries, minutes or injury management. I get that, having a guy come back off a leg injury and you want to not play him on a back-to-back just to get him back right. I totally understand that, but seeing a lot of this red stuff that be in the what you call it during the games, it's just mind-boggling to me, because when I came in the league, guys played 70 plus games. That was guys like Tim Duncan and whoever, Kevin Garnett, whoever you want to name, Kobe Bryant. These guys played 70 plus games. So I don't know. It's just different for me to see that. The league is different now. It's going in a different direction. It's going in a good direction. Don't get me wrong. It's still good basketball, but I'm just not used to guys just sitting out just because. That's just something that's new.
Yeah, and I mean, it starts up top with the organization, right? They wouldn't do it for load management purposes unless they felt like the analytics said something. But the guys you mentioned from your era wouldn't have sat. It's basically what you're saying. They wouldn't have taken that directive and been like,
wouldn't have wanted to.
We're cool with it. Yeah. Like I think it would be very difficult to tell Kobe Bryant he was sitting out for a certain game or not playing back-to-backs.
Exactly. So, I think that's the difference. And I don't know. I mean, I don't really have anything negative to say about it, but it just wouldn't have happened in my time, and it didn't happen in my time. It started happening towards the end of my career, when I got around year 13, year 14, started seeing guys sit out, for, rest periods, or, they just tired, and it was just like, I don't know. I didn't feel like I had time to be tired. I didn't have time to rest because, you got to always think that there's somebody there to try to take your spot. That's how I look at it. That's like a quarterback taking a day off from a game, and then this quarterback comes in and plays better than you and shows a better chemistry with the team. Even if you are a good quarterback, you might have lost your job just because the continuity is better with this quarterback. So you never want to give somebody an opportunity to come in and take your spot if you can help it. So I never was one of those guys who wanted to sit. I try to play through ankle injuries, hand injuries, whatever possible. Like, if I can walk, if I can run, I'm trying to hoop.
Raymond, if there was one team that said, we're going to go against the grain, we're going to be anti-load management, we're going to come out here, the guys we draft and bring in here in free agency or trade for, these are guys that need basketball, and they have to be on the court. And they're going to play in every game they're physically able to play in, and we're going to go all out all the time. Do you think that team would be at an advantage or a disadvantage with players around the league if they made that stance known to every player in terms of going out and getting free agents and building up their roster? If there was one team that had that mindset, do you think it would help or hurt them?
I think it would help because at the same time, like, in order for guys to get better, they got to be on the court. They have to play. They have to get the minutes. They have to get that time. And then on top of that, injuries is injuries. There's nothing you can do about it. If it's meant to happen, it's gonna happen. Whether you playing 60 games or you playing 75 or if you playing 52, like, it really don't matter. You can't dictate what's going to happen. You could try to say, well, analytics say if you play X amount of games, then that'll prevent you from having an injury. I don't believe in that. Injury's gonna happen no matter what. There's nothing you can do about it. It happens every year. We all know it. It happens when guys played 80 games back in the day. It's happening now with guys playing less minutes. There's nothing you can do about injuries. That's a part of the game. That's a part of the sports world, period. In football, baseball, basketball, injuries happen. There's nothing we can do about it. I just think that when you're being careful or being too careful, that's when things happen. And I feel like guys got to play. And I feel like OKC is one of those teams who benefit from that. If y'all agree with me, if you look at them being a team that nobody had thought had a chance, who had a chance to play in to be in the playoffs this year, because they played all year. They young guys was prepared. They young guys was in big games and was able to win big games down the stretch. And, they did some great things this year. And I think that if they add some more pieces with getting checked back and add a couple more things, I think this is a very dangerous team because all those young guys played a lot of minutes this year. They played in a lot of big games and they got that experience. So, I think that's one of the teams that benefit this year from everybody just playing, and not really sitting out like that. They just played and got better each and every game, I felt like.
Raymond Felton, our guest. Raymond, if someone comes up to you on the street, they don't know you're a ball player, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
If you're describing, okay, here's what I did. Are you your first story? Is it from Carolina or the NBA?
My first story would be from high school.
Please,
my first story would be
tell.
from where it all started. You know, just a kid that nobody knew anything about. You know, I grew up in a little small town in South Carolina, Latta, South Carolina, population of about 2,500 people. And, you know, I would have never been noticed if I never was able to go to like a Nike camp, ABCD camp back in the day up on the Son of Vaquero, being able to play in these tournaments that Bob Givens held big time in LA, in Vegas. Like those tournaments was able to basically put me in front of college coaches to really show that, you know, I could play at a high level. I'm one of the top kids in the nation as well. I just don't have the same, you know, outlet or publicity that these kids have in a bigger city. You know, of course, things are different now because, you know, social media, you know, these kids can be seen anywhere. Doesn't matter where you at. But when I came up, we didn't have social media. We didn't have none of that. You know, we barely had cell phones. So, you know, it was just a different time. And I think just that grit, that grind, just me, you know, basically how I said, going to get it out the mud and getting it on my own made it that much better for me, you know, to be able to be a McDonald's All-American, to be considered the top player in the nation by winning the Naismith National Player of the Year in 2002 as a high school player, you know, to accomplish something like that and then to see where my career went after that is just truly been a blessing for me and my family, for real.
And then you met Melo on that team, didn't you? That All-American
team?
Was
on the same. We was on the same McDonald's team. Me, him, and Amari.
Amari Stoudemire.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Yeah, Amari, JJ Redick, few guys that played in the league, you know, for a little bit.
And you won a national championship in North Carolina. I don't want to end on a low note, so I won't ask you what happened to UNC this year. We'll save that for the next visit. And we'll start with that, then we'll end more positive, and we'll get your thoughts on that season. Your final season there was great.
Oh, yeah, my final season was absolutely amazing. You know, it was something magical, something that, you know, I've always dreamed of and, you know, had a goal when I went to Carolina, when I stepped on that campus as a freshman, that, you know, I want to win a title here. So to be able to do that with those group of guys, and, you know, we all still like brothers to this day, you know, that was probably one of the most memorable moments, you know, of my career, of my life, you know, to be able to go win a national championship, watch that banner go up in the Dean Dome, and just, you know, that whole moment, man, the Final Four experience, everything is something that nobody can ever take from me. You know, unfortunately, I wasn't able to get an NBA championship, so I don't know quite how that feels. But I know how it feels to win a big NCAA championship, and that's a wonderful feeling, man. But those guys this year, I don't know. I just felt like, you know, they kind of lost touch of what Carolina basketball was about this year. And I mean that by the players, just the grit, the grind, how we play, and just, you know, what Carolina basketball is about. You know, I think they kind of just got complacent a little bit, and, you know, they just got to get back to, you know, what it's about. And I will say, like, some of this stuff nowadays is the transfer portal stuff is hurting college basketball, if you ask me. You know, a lot of kids is able to go somewhere and not be happy or not get the minutes that they felt like they should have got or deserved, and they just leaving instead of trusting the process. And I think that's hurting the game of basketball for a lot of teams and a lot of colleges. I think that's really hurting.
Raymond Felton has been our guest. Hey, it's only April. We've got it feels like another 3 months left in the NBA playoffs. Hopefully you'll come back on with us, and we'll continue to recap a few of these series as we get inching closer to the finals in June.
Oh, yeah. Anytime, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Really appreciate you. There's Raymond Felton there. It was a great conversation and a lot left to get to with his playing days, for sure. Some great stories behind the scenes. An incredible story when we come back. Yao Ming is the president of the Chinese Basketball Association. And we were talking with Raymond about the Mavs and sitting players. He's dealing with two teams in the postseason fixing games. That's next on Hot Mic.
A newlywed man in India just died after his wife's ex-lover gifted them a stereo filled with, wait for it, explosives. Man, it's undefeated, ladies and gentlemen. It is undefeated, and if you don't know what I'm saying is undefeated, then I cannot help you. But it is undefeated. It is 600 million and oh. And all of a sudden, some dude in India, he just wants to get married. And this guy here decides, all right, marry this. How easy is it to say, well, fella, you're the one that gave the gift. You gave the gift exploded, there were bombs in the gift. Guess what? We're going to arrest you. Now, I'm not saying that this is the easiest crime to solve in the world. I would argue there is probably more. Many times it is, well, not murder that's easily solved, and many times murders are not easily solved. Murders can be very, very difficult to solve. But this murder, to me, seems like a no-brainer. Hey, wait a second. Who gave the gift of the stereo? You know, the one that exploded? He did. Okay, sir, come with me. You're under arrest for a variety of offenses, including murder. What? What'd I do? What do you mean, what you do? You killed somebody. No, I didn't. No, you did. Dumbass. I'm telling you, though, and I think everybody would agree, it is 1,000% undefeated. 8 billion. And I'm trying to find here, I had the story up, and I'm trying to find it here. So the bride's ex gifts them a home theater music system rigged with explosives. The dude was livid that she was marrying another man. Hemendra Hurali died Monday in his house. His elder brother, Rajkumar, died as well. They plugged in the system. They died. 18-month-old child suffered injuries. The blast was so strong, it brought down the roof and the walls of the house. This guy is Sarjay Markham. He was arrested. He is a married man and a father of 2. He was in a relationship with the 29-year-old woman and wanted her to be a second wife. He had lied to Marawi's wife that he wasn't married. She realized the truth. She wouldn't marry him, but he kept threatening her. He fitted the bomb in the system and kept it below the platform with the other gifts. He told police he had planted a device in the home theater and gifted it to the newlywed couple in a bid to kill them. He used ammonia nitrate, petrol, gunpowder that he got from firecrackers. He gift wrapped it to avoid any suspicion. The blast got triggered when the system was turned on. He worked at a stone crushing plant where he learned how to make explosives using aluminum nitrate. How about that?
6th and Peabody, our location with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Hutton Withrow with you on Hot Mic across the OutKick network. Chad, so Yao Ming's the president of the Chinese Basketball Association. In their playoffs, there is not just the accusation of fixing games, of throwing games, but fines and suspensions have been levied. And the New York Post, reading straight from the details of this story, it was best of 3 series in their postseason, games 2 and 3 that were in question between the Shanghai Sharks and the Jiangsu Dragons.
Great job.
Okay. By the way, Eric Bledsoe is listed online as a member of the roster of the Sharks. He was suspended for this series before the series even started. Okay.
Do we know what for?
No, I haven't. I didn't dig in for that.
Also fixing games, maybe.
I think they would have clarified that if that's the case.
Yeah, you would hope.
So the Sharks closed the game on a 10-0 run in Game 3. 10-0 run, and the Dragons produced 5 straight turnovers to allow the other team to close that 10-0 run, to finish with a 10-0 run. Coaches didn't call timeout, and we see the Sharks advance in Game 3 after they were accused of helping fix Game 2 to force the Game 3 tip-off. So you have the teams that were fined $725,000, but they have banned the head coach and the general manager of the Dragons for 5 years, and they banned the head coach and GM of the Sharks for 3 years for games being fixed. And the quote from Yao Ming in this, I mean, it's crazy to just watch it play out. And there are a couple of highlights that are involved with this for lack of competitive effort. But Yao Ming said it's just a sad day. A quite saddening weekend is what he told reporters.
Did you have any idea this is what Yao Ming was doing now?
No.
I did not until I read the story, that he was the head of the Chinese Basketball Association. I need to know the motive here. Is this a 1919 Chicago Black Sox scandal where they're being paid money by gamblers to fix it? Do they just really want to get to their offseason and they threw the game for that reason? Is it a boycott against a lack of bonuses in the league for going to the next round? We don't get a complete picture of this scandal because we don't really know the motive behind it until they can connect the dots to someone taking money from someone who bet on the games.
Yeah.
And in Game 2, it was the other team that threw the game to get it to a Game 3. And then in Game 3, the other team blew the last seconds of the game to get the other team to the next round. It's confusing to follow.
In the second game, the disciplinary commission of the league said that the Sharks were fined and disciplined for negative contention of a 97-90 loss, while the Dragons were accused of displaying a, quote, lack of competitive effort in the 108-104 loss in Game 3. Yeah. So, yeah, the whole series was a fix.
Do they just draw straws before the series starts and says...
That's a great question. I don't know.
We got to get to 3 games because we get the bonus for the 3-game series, but it's like WWE. But you are going to be the champion. You're going to be the one that moves on this year. Next year, we'll do you solid, and we'll be the ones who move on and have to keep playing.
Yeah.
But you just shake hands before, and then that's what you agree upon?
Best of 3. That teams were deemed not trying to win. It wasn't that one team wanted to win. Both teams wanted to lose, which ties into a South Park episode, which always is the case.
This just in, the new head of the Chinese Basketball Association is Stephanie McMahon. She's taking over now.
Triple H.
Maybe already did.
The music hits.
Yes. Paul Levesque? He can go by his actual name.
Coming up, Jalen Hurts gets paid, and the team, the Eagles, not going to be salary cap strapped. Details next.
What you're experiencing is the bold taste of a Southern legend. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, authentic Tennessee mountain-style spirits. We believe in crafting flavors that were born from tradition but defy expectation, and pioneering a new experience with every sip. Because if it doesn't do this, It ain't this. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Come on.
Welcome into OutKick the show. I am Clay Travis, your fearless leader.
I am going to continue to argue that sports is one of the great unifying forces in all of American life.
ESPN is a sinking ship. Democrats are now the party of the white, woke college graduate.
So the higher that number can be, the better you are with the committee. It's really that simple.
You gotta lean into the turns. You really gotta lean into the turns.
He's got incredible taste in which media figures he listens to.
Very difficult to go back-to-back years in the NFL with the number 1 overall pick.
I've been out of LA long enough to have forgotten that libs, no matter how ridiculous the scenario, are gonna live. Another week of inflation, another week with Biden with COVID, and another set of losers to crown. People don't watch the WNBA on TV, in person, on a plane, on a train, on a bus, or on purpose.
The scary thing, Tommy, is in the history of this government, I've never seen them give anything back that they've taken.
Oh no, they never do.
And they won't.
Why are we going through Melania's goods? Don't make Brittany Griner out to be some type freedom fighter. Shouldn't there be a little bit of common sense? Let's roll them, big boy. What do you got?
They want to find someone to be the face of domestic terrorism, and they want it to be a right-wing Trump supporter. Don't let them entrap you into doing something dumb. But they were hyper-rational. They looked at the data, and they said it makes no sense for me to submit to this COVID shot mandate.
Get the shot or you can't go to your brother's wedding. Get the shot or you can't go to your daughter's graduation. Get the shot or else.
Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. A bold taste of the Southern Legend.
Just like that, the second hour is here. Chad, it's been a fast-paced show to start. We've got John McClain coming up in 20 minutes. NFL headlines. There are plenty going into the draft. And with the quarterbacks right now, as contract extensions are all the talk. An hour from right now, Dane Brugler will be on the show. Author of The Beast with The Athletic. The Beast being the most jam-packed NFL draft preview you can find on literally any prospect. Dane did a full 7-round mock draft for The Athletic and spends his entire year putting together this draft guide. He joins us for his visit. That's coming up in an hour. Plus Kurt Schilling on the show in hour number 3, talking Major League Baseball. The talk yesterday, of course, about the Jalen Hurts contract extension, now the highest paid player in NFL history. Details coming out through Andrew Brandt, through Adam Schefter, and others. The 5-year, $255 million contract makes him the highest paid player. He's making on average $51 million per season. And about $180 million of that is guaranteed to Hurts. And at signing, he has $110 million guaranteed at signing. So let's put this in perspective and know what we're talking about here. $110 million guaranteed at signing on the contract. Up to $179 because of the injury guarantee that's also included in this. So dude got paid. More power to him. Agent did a fantastic job. He deserves it.
Which that money is what truly matters to the player.
Right.
That is what you are guaranteed to get when you sign. So that's the most important part for the player.
Yeah.
You're going to get into the salary cap part of this too for the team.
Yeah, the salary cap is when you see what they've done, it's not like, I mean, when you see the salary cap hit for the Browns and Deshaun Watson, I mean, it's massive every single year. And Schefter put out the tweet, I think we just showed it, let's put it back up, on what the impact will be on their season, on their cap. He's only going to count $6.1 million per year, or for this year, on the cap for Philadelphia, followed by 13.5, then 21 in year 3 of this extension, and 31 million against the cap in year 4 of this extension. What they've done and what teams are doing, or what they could do in a situation like this, are voidable years on the back end of a contract. So it looks massive, but really by the time you get to certain years, you either continue to renegotiate and restructure and kick the can down the road, or there are ways to set up a contract that are more cap friendly while putting players' money in their bank account immediately. And you can see what Andrew Brandt is tweeting about with, you have option bonuses in the deal that could bring on more cap. That would be 27 and 28. Massive cap charges, maybe north of 70 million. That's what we were seeing in voidable years, or what we started to see with what the Saints did with Drew Brees, right? They continued to restructure. By the time you get to the cap hits that Andrew Brandt's talking about, they'll restructure all this, and it benefits the player. It also benefits the team because you're making more cap space based on all that. At some point, you have to pay for what you're doing with the cap. But the gamble would be, if you're Philadelphia, is that you're setting up your cap down the road for what's going to be a much larger cap than it is today. And while you didn't see it in the recent contract extensions of any of the guys like pre-COVID or going into that COVID year, is the COVID season.
Mahomes, Josh Allen, that group.
Yes, but also like Tannehill got extended after that year. There was one or two others. You had to account for the fact that the cap was going to go down, not up, based on revenue and everything involved with that. And now that you have the new TV revenue coming in and the billions that are being made off of it, the gamble would be, hey, we're going to be willing to pay and take that cap in and still be competitive, because the cap's going to be up and we can absorb more of it then than we have to now. So it benefits the player. And I think the assumption is, oh, Jalen, look at this. Hurts he got paid and he's not counted against the cap. What's going on with my roster? Well, therein lies your answer, is they've structured this to where they either have voidable years or they take the cap hit much later in the guy's career after they win a couple Super Bowls.
Or, if they're not competing for Super Bowls, it's a way to cut bait, later in the run and then not, be done with it. It's smart business, right? I think we both agree this was a wise move by the Eagles.
Sure.
And the way they kind of manipulate the cap a little bit, it's just the smart way to do it. It leads people to say, well, is the cap truly real? It is, but these are the ways you can finagle it. So even when you see a monster contract like this one for Jalen Hurts, you look at it and say, well, it's not awful for the team, because the immediate response, we were getting some of this on the YouTube chat, was, so now the Eagles can't go get good players because they've got so much money locked in with quarterback. Well, it does hinder their ability to do certain things, but because the way, Hutton, you laid it out that it's structured, it doesn't completely negate their ability to field a really good roster around Jalen Hurts, because the way it's backloaded and what they could do 3 years from now if they wanted.
Yeah, and they, with the injury guarantee and other, they're only going to have to pay him up to $179 million of the $255, period. And only $110 is fully guaranteed at signing. And then you have the injury aspects lock in once he's on the roster. which he will be. But again, like I think the structure of it is brilliant, and I wonder how much of that structure is what we're going to see with Burrow and Herbert, maybe even Lamar Jackson with just more money guaranteed at signing that can also lock in with voidable years moving forward for Baltimore, where the voidable years meaning you cut bait and you're never actually going to see the money that's on the back end of the contract, even though that money counts to prop up the overall number that you're pushing and that the player wants out there, right?
Yeah, this seems like, to me, the proper measuring stick for Herbert's upcoming contract.
Yeah, that's
with
good.
Jalen Hurts. I don't know that it's apples to apples with Lamar Jackson or Joe Burrow. So this is a good marker of, okay, here's where Jalen Hurts is. Joe Burrow is going to go above that. I think Lamar Jackson probably goes above that. He got offered that above that already from Baltimore, goes above that. And then Herbert will be right around that Jalen Hurts number. That's the way I sort of see this breaking out. If I'm just, okay, now that it's like draft picks being slotted with what they're going to make for the most part.
Yeah.
To me, this helps the slotting system more than what the Browns did with Deshaun Watson, because this is a more logical conclusion from a franchise that knows what they're doing with the Eagles that everyone can look at and say, now this is what we're paying you against and compared to.
And I think it's also important to the Eagles have drafted well, so that's allowed this process to play out this way because they have players under rookie contracts, the more affordable contracts, and they're not having to pay big money. And they can do that now, but they're not having to pay the big money to overspend and bring in players because they're younger players that are 4 years into the league or less aren't panning out. Those guys have. And they're either getting paid elsewhere whenever the contract is up, or you enhance by bringing in and trading for a guy like A.J. Brown, who is going to pair well with Devontae Smith, but he only does that because they hit on Devontae Smith, who's playing under the rookie contract. And you compare him with a guy that's getting paid. At some point, though, Chad, when it's time for Devontae Smith to step up and say, hey, it's time for big money as well, he'll also break the bank, and then you can't pay everyone.
Yeah, I mean, Dallas Goedert, A.J. Brown, big-time offensive lineman.
Yeah,
someone's not going to make the cut. Devontae Smith, right? I mean, that's –
but
someone's not going to be in that.
But they can absorb a bigger contract if they need to, based on the way the contract is structured of their quarterback. So many teams are hamstrung by the quarterback hit because if you cut the guy, you're out.
Yeah.
So or trade, like you still have to absorb the hit based on the money you gave a couple years ago. Something to think about. And it's something behind the scenes where yesterday's headline of $255 million, comparing it to Lamar, it's just different based on the way the Eagles have been really good at setting up this roster and setting up a moment like yesterday. Not everybody can do that because not everybody's as good as they've been behind the scenes at drafting and acquiring talent.
And that division is formidable that the Eagles are in right now. So important to have your young quarterback locked up for the future.
Well, think about the quarterbacks that are being paid now. Of course, Hurts, but you've got the Prescott contract down in Dallas, right? We just saw Daniel Jones get paid in New York.
Tied for 7th highest paid quarterback in the league.
Yes. Soon to be like not even top 10, though. Keep that in mind.
Which is where he should be, not top 10.
Right. I think the rankings that you'll see now for where they rank salary-wise.
Constantly be reset with the next contract.
At some point, you'll be like, oh, Daniel Jones is winning games again, and he's only being paid in the top 15, not the top 10. That's about right. But not the case now. He's, like Chad said, tied for 7th at $40 million in new money per season with Matthew Stafford and Dak Prescott. But then you have Washington, who is trying to figure out their situation. And maybe they are a wild card for a quarterback in the draft. Who knows? But the big money talents, when you start looking around the league, in the NFC, if I'm finishing 2nd or 3rd in the NFC East, I'm feeling okay because I feel like I'm going to the playoffs.
Yeah, it's one, and then you got Washington on the flip side of that, right?
Yeah, but Washington
they got a good defense.
Yeah, but it's not like they bottomed out and had 2 wins either. You know, they're a weird situation just because of what's going on behind the scenes.
Maybe I'm crazy here, but the Eagles quarterback situation to me is light years better than anyone else in that division. And I'm including Dak Prescott and the Cowboys with that right now.
With the money?
And it's probably a little bit of proximity bias because he just got this team to the Super Bowl and won the NFC. And had he not been hurt late in the year, probably would have been MVP. But give me young Jalen Hurts entering into his prime at this point in his career with that roster over Dak Prescott and the Cowboys any day, over Daniel Jones and the Giants. I love what the Giants are doing with Brian Daboll. I love that turnaround this year. I like the nucleus around them. And Daniel Jones had a nice year. But give me Jalen Hurts over Daniel Jones any day of the week.
Yes.
So while that is a division setting up to be great for the foreseeable future, I'm still taking the Eagles and Hurts all day, every day right now.
Chad, how about the story in Buffalo? Damar Hamlin cleared to resume full football activities. That according to General Manager Brandon Beane. I would have never guessed this is happening this quickly. Maybe we see it down the road where he tries to make a comeback and he makes an appearance in a game. I would never have expected where we were on Monday Night Football and to fast forward to April and this headline's out there. I mean, his return to full football activities happened faster than a dude that tore his ACL. That's incredible.
It's awesome. It's a great story that he's going to be back out there. Help me out here, though. Did he ever say what happened? Or has any doctor said it? We've all speculated it was.
Other than we know it was a heart issue.
Commotio cordis is what everybody speculated, but no one has said it. I don't think that serves the greater public well. It's totally his decision, but this was a high-profile deal. You could help a lot of people by explaining what happened. I do not understand the secrecy and the silence in what happened to him. We think we know. We've had doctors, cardiologists on this show that have explained to us what they saw and what they would say probably happened, but they don't know because they're not treating Damar Hamlin.
Well, all we know is it was cardiac arrest, but that's it.
Yeah, but we don't know what caused it. We don't know if it was commotio cordis, if it was something else that happened. All I'm saying is I'm not alleging there's something sinister going on, but if not, then just say it. I just think this could really help. It's such a high-profile deal. If it's something that we can get information out there about and people are on the lookout for things like this, could help other people.
Yeah, I just find it. So they've said that he's seen 3 other specialists in addition to what the team is referencing. He's seen 3 additional specialists, most recently on Friday. They all agree it's not 2-1 or 3-1. Yes, go ahead and play. They're all in lockstep of what this was and that he is cleared to resume full activities, just like anyone else who's coming back from injury or whatever. So he's fully cleared. He's here. He's of the mindset he's in a great headspace to come back and make his return, meaning that voluntary off-season training took place and he's there. But not only has he been cleared, they're saying, well, whatever happened with your cardiac arrest, not likely to happen again. Welcome back.
And maybe there comes a time when he talks more about it, but I would just like to know for my own curiosity, and I also think that there is a greater good element to telling your story. When we all watched on national TV someone's heart stop, and everyone was terrified for this young guy, and rooted him on for a week, and rooted him on after that, we all thought that we witnessed something horrific in a football game, and it turns out he's going to play the next year. Why the secrecy? Let's talk about what happened. I'd like to know, and I think the medical community would like to know, and maybe parents of young athletes would like to know. I just don't understand why we're not talking about it.
Not even play the next year, Chad. Cleared to participate fully the following April.
Yeah, which
that's
a great story, and I love it that he's able to get back out there and play. I just think it would serve a lot of people if they talked about what actually happened.
Coming up, John McClain will join us. We'll hit the top headlines with John, including veteran wide receiver traded to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Another veteran, and DeAndre Hopkins, continues to wait on where he's going to be suiting up this upcoming season. That plus the quarterback discussion with all the contracts and, of course, NFL draft, which is just around the corner a week from Thursday. That's all coming up with John on Hot Mic.
Controversial opinion.
I think girls with hairy armpits should be eradicated from the face of this earth.
I agree.
Thank you so much.
Hottest take is that In-N-Out is overrated.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Because their French fries taste like cardboard, and they get soggy too quick if you get them animal style, and their burgers are just like always dry. So it's gross.
Hot dog is not a sandwich
Why not?
because it's not two separate pieces of bread.
What's your hottest take?
Normalize blacking out. Chat GPT is going to take over the world.
Hate Duke University. I hope they never win a game in the history of life. I hate everything about them. That's my take.
Why is that your hot take? Why do you feel so strongly about that?
Air of arrogance amongst people I'm friends with, and I want to punch them in the face often.
I believe there shouldn't be any weight classes in fighting, UFC, boxing, just to let the best fighter fight.
I'm a Packers fan. Think it'd be great if Aaron Rodgers leaves. It'd be really funny if he demanded all this stuff from the Jets and then stayed. LeBron James is not the go to basketball.
My hot take is that the University of Tennessee is hot trash, and so is the SEC. Go Big Ten.
I hate when people slow down when it's a green light and they think it's going to turn yellow, so they slow down anticipating that it's going to turn like red.
People do that?
Yeah, at least in Canada.
He's from Canada. I asked people from Canada for their hot takes. They don't have any. They don't have any.
I'm not a controversial person. To each their own, I guess.
Hot takes from Canada. Snapchat is cringy. Do not ask for my Snapchat if you are over 18 years old.
I think a celebrity that got canceled and shouldn't have is Hayley Williams from Paramore, simply because she said a derogatory term in her song Misery Business from like 15 years ago. 15 years later, they decide she's a criminal? I don't know about that.
I think the Beatles are overrated.
I'm here in Nashville. My hot take is that country music sucks.
Taylor Swift is overrated.
Swift is better country, for sure.
Cowboy boots aren't cool.
We are far from the most racist country in the world.
I'm so ready for the new president.
Here we go. Joe Biden is a terrible president. Trump 2024.
6th and Peabody, our location with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Glad you're with us. Sutton and Withrow here for Hot Mike. Chad, within the hour, Damar Hamlin announced his intention to return and did say that the doctors gave him the commotio cordis diagnosis, which is hitting the chest directly over the heart that can cause cardiac arrest and then ventricle fibrillation.
Perfect timing by me, because 15 minutes after he said that, I raised the question why he hasn't talked about it yet. But now we have our answers. That's good. That's what people were suspecting was the case.
Yeah.
I'm glad that's out there because, again, I think getting that information out there could help others.
No doubt. No doubt. And John McClain joins us, gallerysports.com. A lot to hit this week with John. John, hope you're well. But for this cardiac arrest that took place on January 2nd, it is April 18th, and he has been fully cleared to play and return to football activities. That is remarkable. I said right before you joined, he had a faster timetable than someone with a hamstring, and sometimes a hamstring, and definitely if someone recovering from an ACL. I mean, it's crazy to think how fast this took place.
And that's great, of course, for the Bills. That's what everybody expected. He said he was going to come back. They said that's the way they were leaning, and now it's official.
John, it is also official that Jalen Hurts is the highest paid player in the NFL. What'd you make of the contract and the fact that the Eagles got this done before any of the others get their extensions?
That's great for the Eagles because it's funny money, and he's not close to being the highest paid player when it's broken down, and especially when it comes to guaranteed money. He's actually behind Russell Wilson. Of course, everybody is behind Deshaun Watson, but he's happy with it. It looks great for his agent, putting it out there what the value is, and it can be worth up to $270 million, and that's great for Hurts being a second-round pick. And he's from Houston. I'm for anything good that happens to good Houston guys, and he's one of them. You know, their goal is to get to the Super Bowl. That just shows you can have A.J. Brown at $25 million and a highly paid quarterback at the same time. His cap figures were broken down by Adam Schefter, and they did a really good job on that contract. We'll see now if Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow blanks first, because whichever team signs them next, it's going to be less than the other one signs for. And the Bengals, the Brown family, they're not multiple billionaires. Franchise is worth multiple billions, but they don't have a lot of businesses. So when you do a deal like that, you got to put a certain amount of money in escrow of the guarantee. So that's going to be hard for the Bengals to do. So I'm just guessing they're going to be next with Joe Burrow.
John, you mentioned that you like good things happening to Houston people. Well, Count Nick Caserio is one of those Houston people now, because he says, like Jordan Belfort in Wolf of Wall Street, he's not leaving. What do you make of his statement that he's not going anywhere with the Texans?
Biggest non-story I think I've seen in 47 years. I wrote last week he's not going anywhere. It's preposterous. The word was he's going back to New England. He tried to get out of New England to come here 3 different times beginning in 2017. He has everything the way he wants it here. Final say on personnel. He hired D'Amico Ryans. He's got 12 draft picks this year, 11 next year, 2 number 1 picks this year. He makes $5 million a year. If they ever win a Super Bowl, he'd make another $5 million. Why would he go back to New England and take orders from Bill Belichick? If Belichick was gone, then it would make more sense. And he said yesterday to open his news conference, I was ready with the first question, that he was embarrassed to have to answer something like that because of how happy he is. But there's a lot of people around the country that tried to put stock in it when it was never true.
Why are we beginning to hear that the Texans may pass on quarterback at number 2?
I think it's been out there for a while that they've soured on C.J. Stroud at number 2. Their second biggest need is an edge rusher. D'Amico Ryans, former defensive coordinator, would love to have a guy like Will Anderson Jr. They also like Texas Tech's Tyree Wilson at that spot. The people here can't imagine that they would go into the season with Davis Mills as the starter, Case Keenum as the backup. So I noticed the betting odds have jumped up to Will Anderson Jr. and Will Levis. First time I've ever heard Levis's name mentioned in connection with the Texans. If they want him, they've certainly done a great job to keep it quiet. And Caserio admitted a couple teams have called him about trading up. We said if the price is right, he'll certainly consider it. But in my last mock draft for GallerySports.com, I had them taking Will Anderson Jr. and then Hendon Hooker with the 12th pick. Hooker's stock is going up because of how impressive he's been in all his individual interviews. People are starting to go back and watch the tape closer. And, 10 months after you have an ACL would put him playing again in November, if that's what it was. There would be no rush to play him, no matter where he goes. And as far as his age, turning 25 in January, if he played 10 years, he'd still only be 35 years old. And today, most quarterbacks play beyond 35, especially if they're any good. So age doesn't count anywhere near what it did 20 years ago. And so I have a lot of people I've talked to that I really respect, former coaches and personnel people who like Hooker a lot, especially better than Will Levis and even better than Anthony Richardson, who's the ultimate boomer bust prospect.
John, I made the point to begin the show, like the one position where I just could not roll the dice is at quarterback. Rolling the dice in the draft, meaning if I like a player, I couldn't just assume he's going to be available and like no one else is thinking like I am at the position. The Texans, of course, they need a quarterback. We've exhausted the discussion about Bryce Young and C.J. Stroud. But I imagine taking defense at 2 and then saying, oh, we'll get our quarterback at 12. But if you feel that way, not you, but the Texans feel that way about Hendon Hooker, and you feel like there's not a quarterback worthy of the number 2 pick, why assume that there's a team willing to trade up to get the quarterback you're willing to pass on, and also think that in this run that your quarterback would still be there when they draft at 12? It's a very – you can do that at certain positions. I could not do that at quarterback.
I don't think 5 quarterbacks are going to go in the first 12. 4 have never gone in the first 4. And I think if, would they trade with the Colts or the Titans?
Well,
say both of them want to trade up. Or if you bypass C.J. Stroud and the Colts get him, and then you have to play against him twice a year and he sticks it up here, then that'll end up to be a decision that costs Nick Caserio his job. This is his 3rd year of a 6-year contract. And I don't know what they're going to do. He's got a lot of draft choices. Maybe he takes Will Anderson at 2 and tries to trade up with somebody from 12 to 7, like, say, the Raiders, where he's really tight with the coach and GM. We don't know. Caserio keeps a lid on it more than anybody I've ever seen. And I see these national guys saying what they are and aren't going to do. And I'm thinking they know a lot more than I do, because at this point, I don't.
Well, and you know everything about that organization through the years. That's what you're insinuating, and I'll say it for you. But I'm not saying that 5 quarterbacks are going top 12. I'm just saying if they like their guy, he could be gone. It doesn't have to be 5. It could just be their guy that they're going to get at 12 that goes before they draft at 12.
Is their guy Hendon Hooker?
Do what?
Could their guy be Hendon Hooker?
Not at 2, I don't think so. I've always thought if you got a high pick, say 2 or 3 in the draft, and a quarterback's values on 10 to 15, and you like him, you better take him and not look back and care about what anybody thinks. The fact that the odds makers have put Will Levis up there, if they draft Levis, there's going to, first of all, if they bypass a quarterback in the first round, all the exhilaration, the excitement, the optimism that fans have about D'Amico Ryans and moves they've made in free agency and having all these draft choices and having the 2nd pick in a draft in which 4 quarterbacks are going to go in the first round and probably 5. If they don't have one, you talk about a buzzkill, it's going to be a buzzkill. But Nick Caserio has final say. He'll listen to D'Amico Ryans. He'll listen to his coaches, his scouts. He'll tell the McNair family what he's going to do, and it's his decision. And if he doesn't like a quarterback, any of them, other than Bryce Young, then he shouldn't take one he doesn't like. And if he doesn't, then they're going to be in the running again next year. and Drake May of North Carolina and Caleb Williams of USC at this point are supposed to be better than any of these quarterbacks who are going in the first round this year. But, man, you can't look ahead. Too many things could happen.
Why have they soured on C.J. Stroud?
No idea. People will say they don't like his agent, David Mulligetta, who represented Watson. That's got nothing to do with it. I talked to him about that a long time ago. They don't care. They had a good relationship with Mulligetta. It wasn't his fault what happened to Watson. They put a no-trade clause when he asked him, gave him a monster contract, trade him where he wanted to go. That's not the issue. It'll be something about him. It won't be his personality. It won't be his character. It'll be something about his game that they didn't think was worth the second pick. But beauty is in the eye of the beholder. And so one of those other teams may love him, trade up with Arizona. Could be the Colts take him. What I would love to see is the Texans, Colts, and Titans all get a quarterback in the first round and go into the season with 3 rookies and Trevor Lawrence in that division and watch them develop. See who does the best job of putting players around them, who does the best job of coaching them. Think how exciting that would be for a division that's the second worst in the NFL.
John, this would be such a ballsy move by Caserio and the Texans to pass on quarterback at 2 and try to get one later in the draft. And I admire the courage of it. Does Caserio and company, from what you know, have the fortitude to do this? Because you know this will be unpopular with the fan base to not go try to get a franchise quarterback at 2.
He doesn't give a rat's about what the fans think, what the media thinks. He cares what the McNair family thinks, but they love the guy. I had a column on both of them, Hannah McNair and Cal McNair, just praising the heck out of it after the league meetings 2 weeks ago. And so it's his decision. Had he not wanted to hire DeMeco Ryans, and they did, they wouldn't have made him do it. They'd give him their opinion. So if he wants to bypass it, he'll tell them why. And if there's a quarterback they want, but they're not scouts, they don't know, they're fans. And they'll let him do whatever he wants to do. And when it happens, it will be squarely on his shoulders, putting his job on the line.
John, who do you believe, which teams do you believe are in the running to try to get ahead of Indianapolis? That could be with Houston. That could also be at Arizona, who currently have the 2nd and 3rd pick. If Houston has soured on taking a QB there, and they can trade back but still keep a relatively high pick ahead of where they pick at 12, who's in the running who would want to get ahead of Indy?
First of all, I think anybody need a quarterback, say it was the Raiders, say the Titans. I just think it's too much for the Titans to do, to trade up, to get a quarterback from where they are. It's expensive, and they need so much, as you guys know. And Atlanta at 9. If Anthony Richardson were there, you guys know Arthur Smith. He's a former offensive coach. He might be intrigued. They can say they love Desmond Ridder. Maybe they do. But I'm thinking if there's a more talented guy at number 9, they might go with him. And so maybe they would trade up. There's a lot of teams. It's amazing, isn't it? Every year, how many teams need quarterbacks? This time next year, I'm guessing the Titans are going to be right in the middle of things, of teams needing quarterbacks. And it's a never-ending process. And you can't guarantee you're going to be bad enough to get a top pick. And you can't all be Indianapolis. Colts had the first pick, got Peyton Manning at the first pick, drafted Andrew Luck. And now they've got the 4th pick. Would they swap with Arizona? I don't think the Texans will trade down any farther that it would guarantee them Will Anderson Jr. or Tyree Wilson. They like Wilson, the end from Texas Tech, who's been hurt, had a broken foot, can't work out. So they are, if they take him that high, they're doing it based on potential. You do it with Will Anderson, you see him do it the best conference in college football. Now, they're different players. Wilson's 6'6", 265. He can play outside. He can slide inside, where Anderson is like 245 and strictly an edge rusher. But the Texans need both. So do the Cardinals. So we thought the intrigue began at 3. Now the intrigue begins at 2.
And no intrigue at 1 because it's Bryce Young, right?
It's what everybody says. I still have a hard time imagining Frank Reich, who's never had a regular quarterback less than 6'4", going for a guy that's 5'10" and an 8, but giving up that much to get Bryce Young. But he's special in so many ways. But everybody says size isn't an issue. Every time he goes on the field, size is going to be an issue. Every time he gets hit, people are going to hold their breath. And it's not so much one hit to knock him out. It's the wear and tear of being a quarterback over a 17-game season. And hopefully, if you're the team that drafts him, you want it to be more than 17 games. But he's a special prospect, and he can't do anything about that one shortcoming, and no pun intended.
John, a year ago, the Rams, they were moving on from Robert Woods, and then they end up getting Allen Robinson. Since then, today it's announced Allen Robinson traded to the Pittsburgh Steelers in exchange for a 7th-round pick, and the Rams are going to eat a big chunk of that salary as well. The Rams are paying $10.2 million of the salary, and then the Steelers get Allen Robinson for $5 million plus a 7th-round pick. And this goes to show you what the Rams are doing with the talent or the lack of talent for investment that they've made in these guys, and they don't have the picks to replace them. They did get the Super Bowl, but they don't have the picks to replace the big money guys who didn't pan out. And here we are again looking at McVay, who says he's sticking around for the long haul to see this through. But they don't have the draft capital to move around as much as maybe some other teams based on what they've done to win the title.
Bleep those picks, John.
Yeah, that's right. Anybody would do that for a chance to win a Super Bowl. Maybe not the Patriots because they've won so many of the Steelers. You think the Titans and the Texans wouldn't do that? Jaguars, Lions, of course they would. You'd sacrifice 5 years for one Super Bowl. The Buccaneers did it after they won their first Super Bowl, and I think the Rams people are understanding that Allen Robinson deal. I never understood it to begin with, but great for him. He's going to get to go to the Steelers, and it's just going to take the Rams time to turn it around. And McVay is going to learn to live like the rest of the NFL lives, where there are bleak times to go with the exciting times.
John, we had Cynthia Freeland from NFL Network on last week. Always a great visit, always good insight. And her numbers and everything she put together, she had comps for all these quarterbacks in the draft. And a part of it was not just a comp in the league, but best system fit for a team. And she paired up Hendon Hooker with the Atlanta Falcons. And I bring this up because I do think there are two extreme wild cards in the first round at quarterback. Falcons being one, Packers being another. When you look at the current quarterback situations with both those franchises, Desmond Ridder is a 3rd-round pick going into year 2 with Atlanta, which I think it's odd that we're not having more questions about the future at quarterback with the Falcons. And it almost feels like a given on their end that Desmond Ridder's the guy. And the other one is Jordan Love with the Packers. What do you make of both of those situations and the actual level of confidence in those two guys moving forward?
Packers professed their love for Jordan Love, and now they're going to find out if they made the right decision. One of the reasons they need to get this deal done with the Jets is they need a 2nd-round pick this year, whether it's an offensive lineman, tight end, wide receiver. They need to put weapons around him to maximize his strengths to help them look good for moving on for Aaron Rodgers. They've been blessed to trade for Brett Favre and then to use a low number 1 on Aaron Rodgers when the late Ted Thompson was the GM. And so I understand what they think about Love. Ridder, didn't see him, didn't pay any attention to him, saw him at the University of Cincinnati, great prospect, but I won't be surprised if they take a quarterback.
John, I think there were a couple of other wild cards, though. Tennessee could be one of them. For the guys who need a year to develop, there are several candidates with teams, I'm saying, who have a quarterback in place who could move on a year from now if you're really trying to redshirt. I'm not saying you have to do that all season, but the possibilities could be there for Tennessee, for Vegas. There are other examples of that. Seattle
Rams
comes to mind.
a possibility.
Rams, but it's very difficult for the Rams to get up there and do that now because they don't have the picks for like
Well,
5 years.
And I'm looking at this. In my mind, immediately Hutton goes to Hendon Hooker late first round with these teams. Either a team trading back, trading up into the late first round. Those are the teams I think about outside chances of a redshirt year.
Yeah.
To go get a first-round quarterback, and it probably would be Hooker if it's a late first round.
Unless he's going 12th.
Yeah, unless the Texans are grabbing him at 12. The Texans may
Wait,
end up
before I
drafting
had
at
him
11
going-
and 12 if the Titans trade up with the Texans and draft their quarterback there.
I had him going to Seattle at 20. I made a bet with one of my guys on the air here in Houston today who said he wouldn't go in the first round, wanted to bet $20. So I bet $20 with him. Last year at this time, I bet 100. Damian Pierce would rush for 1,000 yards, and he had 938 with 4 games left. And then I had an ankle injury, missed the last 4, and I had to pay up. And this time, I've had 2 people, longtime quarterback coaches, offensive coordinators, one head coach in the NFL, tell me they've been watching tape of Hooker and how much they like him. And I've been watching the thing on ESPN with Archie and Eli and Peyton talking about Bryce Young and Hendon Hooker, who were
on the clock. Good show. I've been watching it too.
And now I don't put any stock in what Peyton says since he went to Tennessee, but listen to Archie and Eli talk about him, watching him work. I always like, because I learned this from Gary Kubiak, he likes to watch the interaction with the quarterback and other people, whether it's coaches, teammates, and watching Hooker. You know, there's nothing not to like about the guy's personality. And I think that once teams got to the combine and started talking to him, they were impressed. And the word got spread. It started to spread. Boy, this Hendon Hooker, he's impressive. And so then others wanted to talk to him. Then when they would talk to him at the pro day, brought him in for a 30. And, you know, these guys, they spend a lot of time talking to each other. And I think that's why his stock's gone up. I saw something, I think it was The Athletic today, that said Hooker's up into the 50s. Well, I'll be shocked if he goes in the second round. Some people think so. I'm not really sure why, because when I have 2 guys that have been offensive coordinators and coached in this league for years before retiring tell me how much they like Hooker. One said, why are more people not giving the kid from Tennessee a lot of love? I love this kid. And I said, well, I don't know. You know, torn ACL, 25 years old. He said, I don't care. He said, this kid can play. And if he gets in the right system with the right coach, he can be really good.
John, final 60 seconds for you. And I say this tongue-in-cheek, but I'm tying something in that you said earlier. Would Texans fans be more pissed off that the Texans don't draft a quarterback in the first round, or if they select Will Levis at number 2?
First of all, if they don't select a quarterback, they're going to be devastated. If they select Will Levis, there's going to be a lot of backlash among the fans in the talk show, but at least they could sell him and saying, hey, look at the 33rdteam.com. That's all former NFL people. They have him highest rated quarterback. Mel
just look at the bathroom selfie he took. Look how great he looks.
Highly rated, and we don't care if he likes mayo in his coffee. Great arm, but he's not the Texan, not Nick Caserio's kind of guy, because he's outspoken and he's a great interview. They don't like that here, so people would be upset, but then they'd have to get over it because, hey, it's Will Levis or bust.
They haven't liked winning there recently.
We don't like personality here. I like that stance. Take your fun personality and get the hell out.
John, great visit.
That's
as
called
always.
Getting neutered.
And for those that don't know,
it's a lobotomy. It's a personality lobotomy when you get to the league.
When John says he doesn't know, he doesn't know, while others would assume like, oh, they're going to do this or that in Houston. If John's saying he doesn't know,
but
then
you've still
no one
blown
really
my mind
knows.
with some of the things you said in this interview, John. So we got a lot to unpack now that you've joined us.
Well, I can't wait to do it again next week as we get closer to the draft.
Thanks, John.
Same. There's John
Thank you,
McClain.
guys.
You're the man.
GallerySports.com is where you can read and hear more from John and Mattress Mac and all the great coverage around the NFL. Coming up, we'll dissect what McClain had to say throughout the show. We will also talk with Dane Brugler. That's less than 15 minutes away. And the former head coach at Ohio State, Urban Meyer, knows a thing or two about beating Michigan. That's what Ohio State fans would like Ryan Day to do. Meyer is giving his reasons and examples of how he did that. That's next on Hot Mic.
always been a very, very fond of Rob Manfred. I got to know Rob very closely during the labor negotiations when I was a player rep for the 10 years of my career. Always respected him. Always thought he loved the game. Some of the stuff that's happened in the last couple of years makes me question that. But again, I know the guy, so I think he's trying to come from a good place, even if he makes decisions I don't agree with. However, if you're curious as to the financial state of the game, when the manager, the commissioner, or the owner of a company says something in the media that just kind of pisses all over the quality of the product, you know that they're in a financially good place. Rob Manfred talking about analytics, and he's not wrong in a couple of senses this way. So he was asked about it, and he's talking about it on record, saying analytics is an arms race to nowhere. Claims that the marginal value of investing in analytics has never been lower, and he's making that claim. Franchises are pouring resources into something which has little return on investment, little ROI, and that is actively damaging the game. Manfred said, and he's right with this comment, once everybody's doing it, that little margin that maybe you're getting, I'm sure that whatever that margin was at one point in time, whatever it is today, it sure as heck is not worth the damage that was done to the game over a period of time. Okay. So I'm probably going to get bleeped here in the next couple seconds. But this, to me, is a politician complaining on Twitter. And my response is, you're the commissioner. Why are you complaining about your game? You're in charge. Shut up and do something. Why, as a politician, are you on Twitter complaining about the things I'm complaining about? I voted you in to fix it. Don't complain to me. Fix it or shut the hell up. Okay, I'm done. I was doing analytics. And you'll laugh at this, Bill, but in 1997, I thought I came up with this new stat. I said, batting average is really irrelevant. When a guy's hitting 302 and his on-base percentage is 302, I mean, wow, that's not good. But I thought, you know what? A guy's on-base percentage tells me his batting eye, and a guy's slugging percentage tells me if he's a threat. Those two combined might be a cool number. So I had OB percentage. This in my notebook, it was OB percentage plus SLG percentage equals, like, I had it like danger factor or something. I ranked hitters that way. And unfortunately, I didn't copyright that because it became OPS. But analytics are, I think they're essential to succeed to a degree. I think they're an excuse for other people, and I think they're a reason that other people are great. I think you look at Gwynn, you look at all the great players of my era, they were doing analytics. They were just doing it a different way. Maddox was probably, he understood. And I think like I did, I didn't care what your average was. What I cared was your on-base percentage, your first pitch swing percentage, what your strikeout to walk ratio was. What did you hit with runners in scoring position? What was your swing percentage with 2 strikes? And then as I got older and I developed a sample set by facing the same guy 25 times, those numbers would come to fruition. They would be, and I learned that my sabermetric data versus hitters was different than the rest of the league.
Chad, we mentioned yesterday Ryan Day and Ohio State packed the shoe. They've got, what, 75,000?
75,000 paying customers.
At least $7
customers.
each. That's right. They also packed it whenever Michigan beat them for the second consecutive year. And, well, needs to beat them again. Urban Meyer spoke recently at a coach's clinic. This is via Cleveland.com on how he always beat Michigan.
I'm not sure there's anybody that's ever respected that rivalry more than I am. I studied it. We had it on board everywhere about who they recruited, what they were doing offensively and defensively. I had one coach, that's all he did, is watch them year-round. So when someone said, well, the team up north wasn't very good, then I would look at him and say, you don't really understand this rivalry. You don't understand that when we played them, I think 3 times they were in the top 5 in the country. So they're always good. When someone said they're not very good, then they don't, usually that conversation ends quickly. Because first of all, that guy doesn't respect the rivalry. So they're very good. It's one of the top programs in America. You got a great coach, and it's a great rivalry.
You think Ryan Day's hearing that and watching it and jotting down on a notepad? A note to self, assign 2 coaches to Michigan every game, every year.
Staffs now, for their the conference they play in, staffs now would have, like, just how many analysts per team in a conference? 3, 4 analysts per team?
Now?
Think about Bama.
Oh, they've got an army of them.
Yeah,
I'm sure Ohio State does, too.
I think the vast majority of the upper tier of Power 5, they're doing more than just scouting Michigan every week.
I think it's hilarious, though, that I've got one guy assigned to Michigan all year. Can you imagine being the lowly offensive, defensive analyst, whoever, that, hey, what'd you do this season? I did nothing but study Michigan for one game all year. From off-season on, I'm studying Michigan for that rivalry.
NFL's doing the same thing.
It's worthwhile. I mean, it's that big of a rivalry. It's that big of a game. I partly making fun of it, but I also think it's worth it. That game is that big.
And I hope Ryan Day's doing that.
I would hope he is. He's got enough people to do whatever he wants. But I'm seriously thinking if he hears that, he's like, okay, I'm putting 2 guys on it. I'm going to do an interview and say, you know what, I got 2 coaches. That's all they do.
Appalachian State's doing that, Jeff.
I got one guy who brings me my Keurig coffee every day and another guy who studies Michigan year-round.
Dane Brugler next. We talk NFL draft with the best.
What you're experiencing is the bold taste of a Southern legend. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, authentic Tennessee mountain-style spirits. We believe in crafting flavors that were born from tradition but defy expectation, and pioneering a new experience with every sip. Because if it doesn't do this, it ain't this. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Come on.
Welcome into OutKick the show. I am Clay Travis, your fearless leader.
I am going to continue to argue that sports is one of the great unifying forces in all of American life.
ESPN is a sinking ship. Democrats are now the party of the white, woke college graduate.
So the higher that number can be, the better you are with the committee. It's really that simple.
You gotta lean into the turns. You really gotta lean into the turns.
He's got incredible taste in which media figures he listens to.
Very difficult to go back-to-back years in the NFL with the #1 overall pick.
I've been out of LA long enough to have forgotten that libs, no matter how ridiculous the scenario, are gonna live. Another week of inflation, another week with Biden with COVID, and another set of losers to crown. People don't watch the WNBA on TV, in person, on a plane, on a train, on a bus, or on purpose.
The scary thing, Tommy, is in the history of this government, I've never seen them give anything back that they've taken.
Oh no, they never do.
And they won't.
Why are we going through Melania's goods? Don't make Brittany Griner out to be some type freedom fighter. Shouldn't there be a little bit of common sense? Let's roll them, big boy. What do you got?
They want to find someone to be the face of domestic terrorism, and they want it to be a right-wing Trump supporter. Don't let them entrap you into doing something dumb. But they were hyper-rational. They looked at the data, and they said it makes no sense for me to submit to this COVID shot mandate.
Get the shot or you can't go to your brother's wedding. Get the shot or you can't go to your daughter's graduation. Get the shot or else.
Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Bold taste of the Southern Legend.
Hot mic across the OutKick network rolls on. Glad you're with us. We're live at 6th and Peabody with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine, Hutton and Withrow. And time to talk to the expert. The beast is incredible. If you visit The Athletic, you know what I'm talking about. It is the exhaustive dive into the NFL draft, and the author is Dane Brugler. He joins us now on Hot Mic. Dane, always great to have you on, man, and especially this time of year when the time is very valuable. We appreciate you.
No, of course. Always my pleasure to join you guys. It's the feedback's been awesome on the beast, so it's been really cool to be able to, you work on something for a year and then you finally be able to share it, and then hear people really enjoying it. It's might not see everything eye to eye in terms of rankings and this and that, but hopefully people see it as a resource guide. Everything, it's got NFL verified testing data for almost 1,900 players, over 400 reports. So a lot of good background information in there, a lot of good nuggets that maybe most people don't know about these players. So it's a good deep dive into learning who these prospects are all about.
Dane Brugler with us. We're going to see 31 players selected in the first round on next Thursday in Kansas City. That goes without saying. But based on who you've talked to, Dane, and what your expert opinion would be, how many players would you believe, on average, are true first-round graded talent in this year's draft?
Yeah, and it differs from team to team based off of, it's hard to do it from a general perspective, because that's, there's some players I watch and I'm just, not a fan, but you know what? He's still going to be in the guide, still going to grade him. And so every team's a little bit different. Usually in most years, you have 18 to 20 first-round grades. This year, it's a little less. I think we're looking at more 12 to 16 for most teams. I think that's a fair general assessment. At least that's how a lot of teams look at it. And so it's one of those years where, if you have the 20th pick or you have the 50th pick, I think you're getting a similarly graded player in that span. And so to have a pick in the top 15, especially at certain key positions, we're going to see corners go early. We're going to see tackles go early, plenty of pass rushers, plenty of quarterbacks. So you look at the premium positions in today's NFL, that's what's going to really make up the top half of round one this year.
And I mean, I think the positions you just mentioned will make up the top 3 rounds, because there are highly graded players, especially at corner, edge rusher, and offensive tackle in the beast. And if you need another position, there is a considerable drop-off between the top tier and then the rest, if we're just comparing them to those 3 positions in this year's crop.
Yeah, they're deep positions, no doubt. And, we've been, a couple other positions aren't as deep. We've been spoiled by receiver the last 2 years. 2 years ago, Jamar Chase, Jalen Waddle, Devontae Smith, last year with 6 in the top 25 picks. This year, I like Jackson Smith and Jigba quite a bit. If he were in last year's draft, is he the 7th receiver drafted off the board? So it's not as top heavy as we've seen the last few years. But there's still some quality depth once you get to day 2. And so, it's always position by position when we talk about how deep this draft is. But the quarterbacks, to me, that's the most interesting. It's always what, drives the draft conversations, but especially this year, where last year we weren't sure how many were actually going to be first rounders. How early would these guys go? And even, I can remember the day before the draft, working on my final mock draft. I'm talking to, my buddies in the league, and I'm asking them, okay, what do I do with these quarterbacks? And all of them said, in some shape or form, I'm not sure, but they're going to go. They're going to go. They always go. They did it. We had one quarterback in their first 73 picks. And a big reason for that, a lot of teams were willing to be patient for this year. And so with this year's quarterback class, where we have 4 potentially in the top 10, Hendon Hooker's lingering out there. If a team really likes his skill set, maybe he goes in the top 20, top half of round 1 even. So the quarterback conversation is fascinating this season.
Is there a clear line of demarcation at quarterback? And what I mean by that is there a drop-off point from one guy to the next? Is it Bryce Young, then a drop-off and everyone else? Is it the first 4, then a drop-off into Hendon Hooker? Where do you separate this group?
For me personally, I think it's Bryce Young and then a line. Bryce Young, to me, the clear top quarterback this year. You have to be comfortable with the size. That's it. As long as you're comfortable with the size, what's not to like about this guy? His ability to create space for himself, the instincts that he brings to the position, the vision. He really does play like a point guard. He really does play like a Steph Curry with the way he's able to see everything going on. He almost welcomes the chaos, and that's where you worry a little bit about him. Is he welcomes the chaos because he knows that the longer if extra half second, that's going to allow this route to come open, and he can hit it with accuracy and touch. But in the NFL, where everything's a little bit faster, guys hit a little bit harder. A guy that has, yes, he was 204 at the combine. He plays around 190. So, a guy at 190 taking those hits, can he hold up physically? That's the big question with Bryce Young. But if I'm going to take, all these quarterbacks, there's no such thing as a perfect quarterback. So you're going to have to sacrifice something. And if he has above average vision, processing, accuracy, I'll bet on that all day long and sacrifice the size, even though he is a complete outlier. We've never seen anybody quite like this, but pretty confident he's going to be that number 1 overall pick to the Carolina Panthers. And then that's where a little bit of a gap, and then C.J. Stroud, Richardson, Levis, and then I think another gap, and then you have Hendon Hooker, who is a little more of a complicated projection because he's coming off the ACL. He's an older player, but beauty's in the eye of the beholder, and all it takes is one team to believe in a guy, and that it's really could make the quarterback position a jumbled mess. And I think this year it starts with Houston too. What are they going to do? I think that's where, our focus needs to be in terms of trying to project these quarterbacks.
Is C.J. Stroud ready to start? Is that what you're insinuating there, that you don't really know if he's ready week 1 like Bryce Young would be based on your evaluation?
I think he is. I think he could step in and handle an offense. I think that he's the best from the pocket thrower in this draft. He's very natural, and he wants to be that. And that's almost part of one of the reasons you worry about is, can he be creative enough to work off schedule and make plays with his feet when the situation calls for it? But he wants to live from the pocket. And it's always tough when you are, you come from an Ohio State where he has 2 NFL tackles at left tackle, right tackle that don't let him get hit. You've got a Marvin Harrison Jr. that you're throwing to, who, if he were in this draft, he might be the first non-quarterback drafted. And just an all-star cast around you that made things very simple on what you were asked to do. And I don't want to take anything away from C.J. Stroud, But that's part of his evaluation. That's part of the concern as you go to an NFL offense and things are a little different with what you're asked to do. So teams are a little split. Talking to there people around the league, they look at Houston, and I'm told that offensive staff is not on 100% on board. There's not a consensus among the Houston offensive staff that there is a quarterback worthy of taking at 2 if Bryce Young is the number 1 overall pick. And if that's the case, Nick Caserio, GM, he's still making the picks. Does he? Can you take a CJ Stroud there if not everybody's on board on that offensive staff? Do you look to move that pick? What are the trade offers looking like for a team looking to go up and get CJ Stroud? So all these quarterbacks have some type of flaw. They're not perfect players by any means. It's just a matter of guys that you can win with, and I think there will be teams that think they can win with CJ Stroud.
Of those 3, which could you not pass on Brugler's general managed team?
I mean, it stick true to my rankings. It'd probably be Stroud because I think I know what I'm getting with Stroud. He's I feel really good about his floor as a pocket passer, a guy that can push the ball down the field. Pre and post snap, he reads very well. He's got a very natural feel for touch. He's accurate. Yes, he was surrounded by an A+ supporting cast in college, but he does deserve credit as well for what he was able to do. And I think the biggest thing that turned for me with CJ Stroud was the final game that he played against Georgia. Biggest stage he's ever played in, the best defense he's ever played in, and he played his best game as a college football player. And so what he was able to show on that tape really kind of gave me the extra optimism about his transition to the next level, that he has the tools to, at the very least, be a capable NFL starter who's going to help me win football games.
So not only is the beast exhaustive, you mocked all 7 rounds of the draft. It's up at The Athletic right now. Also exhaustive. In that mock, when you look at receivers in the first round, you've got them going in short order, 20, 22, 25 overall for Jackson Smith-Njigba, Zay Flowers, and Jordan Addison. Is there a clear separation in that group that you see, or is it what you have in the mock, 3 guys who are similar in terms of projection, and that's why they're going in short order?
Yeah, and I think that, like I said before, these receivers are not on the level of what we saw the past 2 years, but teams want more firepower on offense. They want to be dynamic. And so I don't think that's not going to stop them from drafting receivers this year. And it depends on what you want. Jackson Smith-Njigba, we have all these guys in the same wide receiver bucket. Jackson Smith-Njigba is a different type of receiver than Zay Flowers, different type of receiver than a Quentin Johnson from TCU or a Jalen Hyatt from Tennessee. They're all receivers, but they have different strengths and weaknesses, and that fits different positions within an NFL offense. If I'm an NFL team looking for a true X, I'm going to have trouble finding that in the first round. And a lot of teams, that's what they want. But if you're a little more open-minded to what the college game is giving you, and then you really, if you want that slot receiver, Jackson Smith-Njigba could be that guy. Jordan Addison, not your well-rounded, Jalen Hyatt, not your well-rounded receiver, but he does 2 things really well. He can take the top off of defense, tracks the ball really well with ball skills. So, those 2 traits right there can help you win and help you move the football on offense. And Jordan Addison, he does a lot of things well from a route running perspective, 3-level threat, but he's 173 pounds. And that's a common theme this year. My top 7 receivers, 4 are under 180 pounds. And that's there's not a great track record of drafting receivers early that are under 180 pounds and then panning out. So it goes back to, the conversation about wide receiver just not being a super top heavy position this year. But like I said, I still think teams are going to jump at the chance to draft these guys because they want to be more explosive. It's all about scoring points, and some of these guys can help you do that.
Your favorite player, your top player is Bryce Young. You've got him ranked number 1. Outside of Young, who is right there? Who's your top defensive player, Dane?
Yeah, it's Will Anderson. I mean, I think that he's been beat up through the process, like guys usually are when they're talked about for years and years as being a future top 5 pick. His junior year was not as The numbers aren't as explosive as they were his sophomore year, but this is still a really talented player who has a chance to be a Pro Bowl level guy for a lot of years. 6'3.5", 255 pounds, 34-inch arms. Wins a lot with speed to power, but he also has body twitch. He's a very above average run defender, a very good run defender. But he can also put pressure on the pocket. And you just look at what he's done, 41 career games at Alabama, 62 tackles for loss. That accurately describes how talented he is at making stops in the backfield, whether it is against the run or the pass. There's just a lot to like about what he offers. So is he different than Von Miller? Yes. Is he different than, say, the Bosas? Yes. I think that, he's more along the lines of a Khalil Mack or, that type of pass rusher where it's a lot of power. It's a lot of, using my hips, reading my blocks, setting up blockers. So he can do a lot of things that most rushers that age, they're not able to do yet. So Will Anderson, I would have no trouble making him the first non-quarterback drafted this year.
And it sounds like Tyree Wilson can do a little bit of exactly what you were describing as well out of Texas Tech, a bit of an unknown to the average fan who has been following what Alabama or the SEC is doing. But from Texas Tech, originally started at A&M, and he has the foundational traits of being a very good pass rusher in the league. What makes him so high on boards, Dane?
A lot of the same reasons Travon Walker went number 1 last year. The traits are just outstanding. 6'5.5", 271 pounds. We didn't get a chance to see him test during this process. He had broke his foot late in the year, so he's been sidelined with that injury. But based off of what he did this year, and he's a fifth-year senior, so he's a little bit older. He's going to be turned 23 here next month. And there's some questions about, okay, why did it take to your 5th year at Texas Tech to really blossom, really become this guy that, we know you're capable of being? Never had more than 7 sacks in a season. And, going up against Big 12 tackles, you'd expect more than that. Will Anderson had double-digit sacks each of the last 2 years in a better conference. But when, again, the NFL draft is all about not what you've done, but what you can do. What are you going to be the next 4, 5, 6 years? Tyree Wilson has a lot of those traits that NFL teams want to bet on. He's powerful at the point of attack. He's a good athlete, so he can play in space, play on his feet, tracks the ball really well in the run game, so he can string out runs, retrace. He shows a lot of the basic qualities that you want in a pass rusher, things you can't teach. Things with the size, the length, the twitch that he plays with. He's a really impressive, toolsy guy. And again, that's why Travon Walker went number 1 overall, and that's why a guy like Tyree Wilson could go as high as number 2 this year. Teams are willing to bet on the traits and what you can be for us down the road, not necessarily what you've done for us in the past.
And not the same position, but the same type of description, at least for me, would be Christian Gonzalez. The corner from Oregon, transferred from Colorado, size, speed, athleticism. He can play man. What's not to like? And you mentioned how deep the corner class is. Is he number 1 on your list there?
No doubt about it. He's one of my favorite players in the draft. And it goes back to last summer. I had a scout tip me off and say, hey, make sure you're watching this Christian Gonzalez. So I throw on the Colorado tape, and it reminded me of I'm watching the end of Avengers Endgame when all the guys are coming back, and Captain America says assemble and all that. I'm like, why is this comic book movie giving me goosebumps? But it is, and I'm watching this Colorado tape, watching this corner. I'm like, okay, why is this corner from Colorado giving me goosebumps? But that's how good he was. He was playing outstanding. Transfers to Oregon and played at a really high level this past year. It got better as the season went on in terms of finding the football, making plays on the ball, led the team in passes defended, led the team 4 interceptions, 6'1.5", 197 pounds. And no mystery where he gets his athletic gifts from. His dad is a 6'9" semi-pro basketball player. His 2 older sisters are both really accomplished track athletes. One's in the Olympics. So, no question about the athletic bloodlines. But, when you have a corner that is tall, long, and can run, it's a great place to start. And Gonzalez offers a lot more than just that. So it's no mystery why he's projected to be a top 10 pick in the first round.
Some really good defensive players that will be selected lower than where they probably should based on where the quarterbacks slot. And I think a key to all this, and just an example, just on a vertical board, Dane Brugler with us from The Athletic. Vertical board, regardless of position, where do you have Richardson and Levis? Because I think that's a key to all of this as teams try to determine whether or not they're trading up for those guys.
Yeah, I've got them 13 and 14 on my board, but it's hard to rank quarterbacks on a same board with guards and defensive tackles and safeties. Because obviously quarterback is such a more weighted position in terms of how it impacts the team and how high you're willing to draft a quarterback. So it really just comes down to, okay, do we believe this guy can help us compete for the division, win, take us to the playoffs, win postseason games? If the answer is yes, then you bump him up on the board. And so some teams will look at Will Levis and feel comfortable drafting him as early as top 5, top 7. Other teams, same thing with Richardson. It's really hard to stack quarterbacks with these other positions. And like I said, beauty's in the eye of the beholder. Some teams will look at these quarterbacks wildly different, and because there's so many factors that go into it. In terms of ceiling, in terms of some of the testing, the S2 testing that plays a part in all of this. The competition level that these guys have faced, just being a little bit different. So it's a really fascinating conversation, team to team. Timeline that factors in as well. Is a team ready to compete right now, or they want an NFL ready quarterback? Are they willing to sit in a guy like Anthony Richardson, who 20 years old, has 13 career starts under his belt in college, didn't go to a big time high school. So there's a lot of development needed with a guy like Anthony Richardson, but at the same time, you want him on the field. That's how an Anthony Richardson's going to get better, is by taking those live reps and making mistakes, but learning from the mistakes to understand what he's doing wrong to get better at it. So things that you're not necessarily going to do just reading a playbook and watching tape. So Anthony Richardson is a player that needs time, but he also needs to be on the field. And that's just not going to be a great fit for every team and where they are on the timeline of competing.
And just briefly, does Levis need that same timeline?
Not as much. I mean, Levis is ready to go out there and I think start from day one. It's a shame we couldn't have seen Will Levis with Liam Cohen, the offensive coordinator, who he had as a junior, and how good he was as a junior. Liam Cohen leaves, new offensive coordinator, also new receivers, new blockers. So there's a lot of changeover, and Levis struggled at times. Also had the injury that factors into this. But no, I think Will Levis is a little more advanced with where he is in his understanding of the playbook and ready to play. Also, one of those guys that tested through the roof, both mentally, physically. So it's no mystery why teams are very optimistic about Levis and what he could be at the pro level.
He mentioned advanced. The AP course and the deep dive into the draft is with Dane Brugler. The Beast is available right now at The Athletic. You can follow Dane on social at DP Brugler. Always great to catch up with you, man, and hopefully we can do this right after the draft as well.
Yeah, anytime. Look forward to it, guys.
Thanks, Dane.
Dane Brugler has been our guest.
The doctor of the draft.
Give some thoughts on what he had to say on a number of positions, plus a lot more to come. That's straight ahead on Hot Mic.
What you're experiencing is the bold taste of a Southern legend. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, authentic Tennessee mountain-style spirits. We believe in crafting flavors that were born from tradition but defy expectation, and pioneering a new experience with every sip. Because if it doesn't do this, it ain't this. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Come on.
Welcome into OutKick the show. I am Clay Travis, your fearless leader. I am going to continue to argue that sports is one of the great unifying forces in all of American life. ESPN is a sinking ship. Democrats are now the party of the white, woke college graduate.
So the higher that number can be, the better you are with the committee. It's really that simple.
You gotta lean into the turns. You really gotta lean into the turns.
He's got incredible taste in which media figures he listens to.
Very difficult to go back-to-back years in the NFL with the number 1 overall pick.
I've been out of LA long enough to have forgotten that libs, no matter how ridiculous the scenario, are gonna live. Another week of inflation, another week with Biden with COVID, and another set of losers to crown. People don't watch the WNBA on TV, in person, on a plane, on a train, on a bus, or on purpose.
The scary thing, Tommy, is in the history of this government, I've never seen them give anything back that they've taken.
Oh no, they never do.
And they won't.
Why are we going through Melania's goods? Don't make Brittany Griner out to be some type freedom fighter. Shouldn't there be a little bit of common sense? Let's roll them, big boy. What do you got?
They want to find someone to be the face of domestic terrorism, and they want it to be a right-wing Trump supporter. Don't let them entrap you into doing something dumb. But they were hyper-rational. They looked at the data, and they said it makes no sense for me to submit to this COVID shot mandate.
Get the shot or you can't go to your brother's wedding. Get the shot or you can't go to your daughter's graduation. Get the shot or else.
Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Bold taste of a Southern legend.
Hot Mic rolls on from 6th and Peabody with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Time to talk some ball, some baseball with Kurt Schilling, who joins us on the OutKick Network, the host of the Kurt Schilling Baseball Show. Kurt, always good to see you, man. And let's just jump right into it. DeGrom, I mean, he's an ace. He's a Cy Young winner, and he has wrist soreness, so he had to leave the outing for the Rangers after 4 innings pitched. your take on wrist soreness being the reason for a guy who's been banged up a lot.
Oh wow, got to be careful with this one.
Okay.
No, I don't know. I mean, you knew this was part of the package when you got him. When you looked at the numbers, might be one of the best pitchers in the history of the game. I just don't know. He's unique in his skill set. He's a once in a generation talent, but the when he plays thing is a huge factor. And I think the Rangers, I think rightfully so, we're looking into this year as possibly being an October team. And I think I put the number, I think, at 15 or 20, the over under for starts for him this year. And I think it's a safe bet. I love the guy. Some guys just don't have the physical makeup or the mental makeup to pitch. There's a difference between soreness and pain. Soreness is something you deal with every day. As an athlete, professional athlete, the last time I wasn't sore, I was like 17. But pain is real. Pain means something's broke, something's not working, you can't pitch. And, I'm not sure where the line is for him. I used to play with guys who were supremely talented who, if they weren't 100%, they thought they were hurt. And there were guys who played at 20% because they felt like whether they were we were a better team with them in the lineup than not. He knows his arm better than anybody, so you have to go on his word and the things that he's dealing with. But it's got to be frustrating for Texas, and I'm sure it's frustrating for him. But this is not a surprise to anybody. It can't be.
So I want to ask you about when the physical bleeds in with the mental on this. And Max Fried's another guy. He had some hamstring tightness in his first start of the season, came out of the game. He's back now, pitched great last night against San Diego for Atlanta. But how much of this, Kurt, is if you're told constantly the level of investment that's been put into you from an organization, and you're constantly drilled with, pitch management, managing your body, making sure you're there for the long haul, I'm curious how much of this has been coached into pitchers and into guys to start looking at different things that may be strained or may be wrong over the course of a start. That's different from your generation of pitchers.
Well, listen, again, there's a difference between soreness and pain. When you're sore and aching, it's every day. When you're in pain, you can't play. And not everybody obviously takes that approach. I mean, my God, look at guys in the NFL, look at guys in the NHL. There's a precision to the art of pitching in baseball, the fine motor skill stuff that, obviously, a cramp in my calf as a pitcher could stop me from pitching, where guys will skate shifts with broken bones in the NHL. We're not talking about LeBron James tough, but we're trying to talk about tough athletes, but it's different. And it really has a lot to do, I think, with the locker room that you're in and the people you're around. Because, the things that I went through physically and I saw other guys go through physically, I was on the field because I wanted the guys that shared my uniform to respect me and to care about me and like I did them. And I don't know, I don't ever remember a single second of my career where my salary bled into my thoughts about my physical well-being. I never, I can't imagine anybody ever doing that. But you get your, and to be clear, the other thing is, a lot of times I think there's a lot of Belichickian like maneuvering with some of the good managers in baseball who don't tell you what's wrong. The injury to Woodruff, I think, in Milwaukee. I honestly think that there's a legitimate better than average chance he doesn't pitch again this year. That's a huge deal where he's hurt, and you're talking about months of sitting. I just saw somebody else was moved to, I think, the 60-day today. You're seeing a ton of injuries, and part of this is the program now. The program these kids are on coming up to the big leagues. You're paying a guy $30 to $40 million a year to throw 175 innings. I mean, really? But that's the go. God bless the players for getting it. But these guys are being asked when you have to do something for the first time in your life at the big league level. A, you're not getting enough minor league experience, and B, few bodies ever can handle that. There's a jump up in physical exertion and physical effort that you can't replicate in AA or AAA. There's a speed to the game that doesn't happen until you get to the big leagues. But most guys like me, I had I think 500 or 600 innings in the minor leagues before I got to the big leagues. I had a couple 180 inning seasons in the minor leagues because you said old school. Starting pitchers, the most valuable statistic I could have once I realized what pitching in the big leagues was all about as a starter was innings pitched, because that's what they were paying me for. And they were paying me to be like Garrett Cole and Sandy Alcantara. I mean, you're a starting pitcher. Those are your 27 outs. If you don't take personal responsibility for all 27, then you're not taking personal responsibility for the win. A quality start is just a horrific day in the big leagues. 3 earned runs in 6 innings. That's 18. There's still a third of the game left. That was kind of the mentality that was bred into me coming up through my leagues. That's not the case anymore. And, Sandy Alcantara is like this freak of nature now, whereas every staff had 2 or 3 of those in the 70s.
So I know that Tampa's lost 3 of 4, but they started 13-0. And you look at their payroll and you look at what they're able to do, pitching and hitting. Kurt, what is the secret sauce with that organization, if there even is a secret sauce?
There isn't. It's player development. I would argue that in my lifetime, the Tampa Bay, the St. Louis Cardinals, the Yankees to some degree, their minor league system creates Major League Baseball players. You don't ever see, the idiocy that Javi Baez was running around with in Detroit over the last couple of days, last week. I mean, that's embarrassing. But you don't ever see somebody in those organizations doing those things.
Hey, kudos to the manager for pulling him, by the way, in the Javi Baez. I wanted to ask you about that. Immediately yanked him out of the game when that happened.
I got to tell you, those are the kind of times and situations where we would have a fight in the clubhouse. That's how you got that stuff fixed, because that somebody on the team, not the manager, it's not the manager's job to manage that. That's somebody the captain takes to the tunnel and says, hey, listen, here's how this is going to play out. If you do that again, you and I are going to fight right here next inning. And I saw situations like that, and I was involved in a couple fights like that later in my career with team, because that's how you handle and police yourselves. That's how you know that the team you're watching isn't ready to be serious about winning it all. When players don't manage those things, and the manager has to. You don't have the right mix of people in that clubhouse to take care of those things.
Kurt, Trevor Bauer is pitching in Japan. He's playing for the Bay Stars, and he's actually pitching in their minor league park, and will eventually get the call up, I guess. But what's the end game here? Is he going to pitch so well that a team's going to bring him back to Major League Baseball, or is this we're just going to continue to see Trevor Bauer tweet out what he's done, which was in his debut in front of 2,600 fans, struck out 6 in 4 innings, no earned runs?
I come at this from a lot of different angles. On the personal angle, he and I duked it out on Twitter for a little while. I think he's, the village idiot when it comes to some of the stuff that he's done. But the fact of the matter is the guy broke no laws. There were Major League Baseball took its moral superiority stance in a situation where they really honestly have no right taking that stance. I said it when it happened. I don't think he ever pitches in the big leagues again. And one of the reasons why I think was the part that hit hardest for me as a player was none of his teammates came to his defense. And you heard rumblings. I'm not sure that they're true or not, but you heard rumblings from the clubhouse of they didn't want him back. You're talking about a Cy Young winner, a 200 inning, 20 win guy, massive numbers, phenomenal stuff. I mean, there's a reason why number one picks in baseball are rarely ever traded. And when they are, that's the red flag. This guy was a high pick and he's bounced around 3 or 4 times. And I look at him as the kind of the antithesis of Garrett Cole from a clubhouse makeup guy. There's nothing about this guy that says leadership. He's clearly got an insane baseball IQ. He's into the details of pitching, like I think I was to some degree. The workout part of the coin, it's just a new generation and a different time and place. But I think I don't think he'll ever. I mean, listen, especially with the way culture is now, what major league team disavows their brand to the degree that they bring this guy in? Because listen, I can tell you there's 25 players, none of them are going to put up with this crap. And not Trevor stuff, but with him is going to come a media circus. And every player in that clubhouse has to answer questions about, okay, you were 0 for 4 with 4 punch outs tonight, blah, 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 blah. Why do you suck? Why do you suck? Oh, and another thing, what do you think about Trevor Bauer? Nobody wants those questions.
How much of that, though, is also because he's one of them carrying a camera everywhere?
Oh, yeah. No. Listen, the guy bit himself in his own ass, so to speak, and maybe he did actually. I don't know, but the fact of the matter was he didn't break any. He didn't break any laws. Yeah. But there are just some things that you just can't be that stupid. For somebody who has a baseball IQ probably in the hundreds, multi-hundreds, common sense, he's probably like a -7. Doesn't mean he isn't a generational talent, potential Hall of Fame talent guy. But when you're that good, you're living on the edge with that personality, because you have to always be as good as he is for all the other bull crap to be accepted. And the guy, I'll tell you, Manny Ramirez. I mean, you look at all the stuff and all the stories. Never got him traded or kicked out because he was 335, 45, and 135. When that stopped being a question, see ya. I mean, and this day and age now, with, my God, the sports tailoring to a woke culture and trying to cater to fans that don't even watch their games. Can you imagine the women's rights march that will happen outside of the minor league ballpark that Trevor Bauer pitches in America, becomes back to play for a big league team? I mean, teams don't want to deal with that. And, that's saying something when you're that talented. I'll give you an example. If something were to happen to a player like Mike Trout, God forbid, and he were to do something, he would get a DWI. Every player in that clubhouse would be saying, you know what, this guy is the greatest guy in the world. He made a mistake. Everybody deserves it. You'd have players going and coaches and past people. I haven't seen anybody in this guy's life ever come out and say, you know what, he's a great kid. And he's a great guy in the clubhouse. It's been the opposite. And he's got a father and a mother somewhere and a family. And I understand that. But he also, I don't think he ever thinks he bites off more than he can chew. I just don't think his ability to chew is nearly what he thinks it is.
So the AL East, from a record standpoint, is best in baseball right now. Kurt, do you think that's going to be the case throughout the year, that this is, in fact, the best division in baseball?
I don't know, but I do know this. Along with the rule changes, the pitch clock is turning into something that they're going to have the old "get off my lawn" guys who are going to say it sucks and it's horrible. But the fact of the matter is, it's bringing more people to the game. I said on my show yesterday and then today, my oldest son, who grew up in a clubhouse, had stopped watching baseball for a long time. And he mentioned to me the other night that he's like, I'm watching a lot of games now. It's like enjoyable to watch. It's not a 4-hour experience and all the things to go with that. And that kind of caught me off guard a little bit. Because again, I am old school in that sense. I love the drama of baseball and the moments that drew themselves out over a period of time. A lengthy at bat, the Kirk Gibson at bat. Go back and put a stopwatch to that. That would have been like 91 pitch clock violations during that at bat. But I think those things are going to change and be missed. But I mean, you can't argue with the fact that I think it is actually bringing. I don't know that it's drawing new fans. I think it's bringing some older fans that had turned their back
point.
on the game back.
Yep.
And you know what? You can't argue that. And I always want to see. I'm not a fan of any one team, but I want to see more people at the games, and this is helping.
And the number one thing, Hutton, that'll make you want to watch baseball again is when your team is good. I found this with everyone who's a fan of a team. When they're good, you're watching more and more.
It's never good. And unbelievably, owners try to act like they don't know that. That will always be the case in every market, anywhere, ever. Except, honest to God, I don't think Florida is a viable market for either team there. I don't care how they do. I think when you're talking about relocation with Nashville, which I think is absolutely a place where a Major League Baseball franchise would thrive above and beyond. Nashville and Vegas to me are the next two spots. And I honestly believe if Oakland doesn't get the San Jose Stadium, they need to get out of that armpit. Oakland could be a team that relocates. I could see them following the Raiders to Vegas, but I can't imagine or fathom that the Florida teams are going to continue unless the game goes to across the board 100% revenue sharing. Otherwise, this is the Tampa Bay formula is literally nearly impossible to sustain year in and year out, no matter how good, because you're getting rid. You think about what you are as a fan of teams, whether it be your football, the Titans, or whatever. You get attached to players. Their players, the second you start to get attached, they're gone because they don't ever sign them to long-term deals. They trade them and make great trades and take other teams' prospects.
And then or draft with the picks and then bring up more great prospects. You mentioned, final thing for you, Kurt, you mentioned the fans are coming back. That also includes Oakland, believe it or not, because the fans are going to have a reverse boycott to show ownership and everyone from the outside looking in that the fans are not the problem, despite what is being said about the issues there. I feel bad for the fans there, but they're eventually going to have to go to.
Don't.
No.
I'm saying, you know what? I'm going to say don't. Because I retired, so I don't have to pitch there again.
Okay.
Their fans sucked.
Well,
they were They were Raider fans and Raiders outfits, but they were brutal and they were hard and they weren't baseball fans. They were just people looking to get drunk and throw stuff
Hooligans.
at players. They were yes, they were but yes.
British
Oakland,
hooligan soccer fans, basically.
I know it's probably I'm a little older than you guys. The 70s, the Oakland A's were everything. They were a dynasty. And it was a great city, but every California city has a chance to be something. But that franchise has been ruined by the ownership, and they aren't a small market. They just have a small fan base because of what they've done, and they're reaping what they sow. But I'm partially being facetious, but the fact of the matter, you're right. I mean, think about that market, and again, California has what, 4 teams. Every one of them. I mean, look at San Diego. 10 years ago, no one would have said San Diego's a 3 million.
5 teams,
year.
yeah.
Right. No one would have said that about them. The Dodgers always draw.
Yeah.
Anaheim is a tragedy, I think, because 2 of the best players anybody alive will ever see are quietly going about their Hall of Fame careers, and I think that stinks. But and the Giants are literally. San Francisco, from a sports perspective and a sports fan, is one of the best places on the planet. The fans in San Francisco in that ballpark are mean and nasty and vile and smart and funny as hell. And as a competitor, it's a great play. One of the most beautiful parks I've ever played in too. But I don't know. I hope baseball. Listen, you heard me talking. We talked about it before the season about the rule changes, and I was very pessimistic about a lot of stuff, and I've been wrong. I was the same way about the wild card, and that turned out to be the greatest thing ever. So it'll be very interesting. I think the big ones you're seeing at 35% increase in stolen bases, which is absurd. You're talking about insane numbers this year for stolen bases. I think the shift that we're going to talk about on my show Friday, I think the shift is having a monster impact that's kind of going under the radar.
This is what you get with the Kurt Schilling Baseball Show. New episode available right now at OutKick.com. And you mentioned it comes out Friday as well, every Tuesday and Friday, OutKick.com. Kurt, we always love the conversation, man, and we'll chat soon.
Always love being here, guys. You have a great day.
Thanks, Kurt. You too. Appreciate you.
Kurt Schilling there. Chad, it's been a fast-paced show. We wrap it up next on Hot Mic.
controversial opinion.
I think girls with hairy armpits should be eradicated from the face of this earth.
I agree.
Thank you so much.
Hottest take is that In-N-Out is overrated.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Because their french fries taste like cardboard and they get soggy too quick if you get them animal style, and their burgers are just like always dry. So it's gross.
Hot dog is not a sandwich
Why not?
because it's not two separate pieces of bread.
What's your hottest take?
Normalize blacking out.
ChatGPT is going to take over the world.
Hate Duke University. I hope they never win a game in the history of life. I hate everything about them. That's my take.
Why is that your hot take? Why do you feel so strongly about that?
Air of arrogance amongst people I'm friends with, and I want to punch them in the face often.
I believe there shouldn't be any weight classes in fighting, UFC, boxing, just to let the best fighter fight.
I'm a Packers fan. I think it'd be great if Aaron Rodgers leaves. It'd be really funny if he demanded all this stuff from the Jets and then stayed. LeBron James is not the go to basketball.
My hot take is that the University of Tennessee is hot trash, and so is the SEC. Go Big Ten.
I hate when people slow down when it's a green light and they think it's going to turn yellow. So they slow down anticipating that it's going to turn like red.
People do that?
Yeah, at least in Canada.
He's from Canada. I asked people from Canada for their hot takes. They don't have any. They don't have any.
I'm not a controversial person. To each their own, I guess.
Hot takes from Canada.
Snapchat is cringy. Do not ask for my Snapchat if you are over 18 years old.
I think a celebrity that got canceled and shouldn't have is Hayley Williams from Paramore, simply because she said a derogatory term in her song Misery Business from like 15 years ago. 15 years later, they decide she's a criminal? I don't know about that.
I think the Beatles are overrated.
I'm here in Nashville. My hot take is that country music sucks.
Taylor Swift is overrated.
Swift is better country, for sure.
Cowboy boots aren't cool.
We are far from the most racist country in the world.
I'm so ready for the new president.
Here we go. Joe Biden is a terrible president. Trump 2024.
Chad, so
quick show.
Yellowstone's a good show.
It is.
And it's
fallen off a bit lately, but
has it? And what season did it fall off? Because I haven't, I'm not caught up with you.
I'd say season 4.
Oh, okay.
Last season and the first half of this season, which maybe we never even see the end of this season based on what's going on. Apparently it's going to be over whenever they get together to film the second half of the season, which may not be for a while. They're going to end the show.
So they're making that official, right? That they're ending after season 5.
Yeah.
If in fact that it has really tailed off, and you agree with Chad, Kevin Costner saved how we view this show by saying all these requirements
5 is enough,
or kill me off, or do whatever you have to do. And oh, by the way, I'm going to be here for a week and I'm out. Those restraints on the front end of things sounded like he was being, a diva and demanding. But as you look at it now, it's like, well, if it led to a show that was already about to jump the shark, more power to him.
Because I'm caught up on all these and all the prequels. This is the right thing because this show has fallen off. And nothing is ever truly over. They could easily revisit this in 3 or 4 years and come back to this story in a future season. And now you've got this entire Yellowstone universe around it that can build back to it. It's a good thing. I think this is a positive thing for the show.
Great bands do it all the time. Final tour and then the reunion tour and then the reunion tour again. We're back at it again tomorrow starting at 3 o'clock Eastern.
We'll be back.